We're about to do in real time tech
Hell
bullshit.
yeah.
And bingo, there it is. I did it. I'm so smart.
Nice.
All right.
I love Aries.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, let's play it. You can pause it whenever you want to, I believe. Let me just make sure I have it set to do that.
So we rely on reason, logical inference.
Okay, ready?
All right, I was able to pause it. So
okay, cool. Let's do it.
Deduction and meaningful discourse to explore reality. But why is reason trustworthy in the first place? Some argue that reason is simply a product of human autonomy, an accidental byproduct of a purposeless universe. Yet if reason arises from mere accident, there is no ultimate basis for its validity. Instead, we must acknowledge that reason requires an unshakable foundation. This leads us to a choice. Either everything is accidental.
So I kind of want to talk about this first. Why? I think that's the first question that comes up is why do we need a foundation?
Yes, exactly.
Why do we need like an objective foundation in the first place?
Why do we need a foundation?
I don't think that's necessary.
Why do we need a foundation? And also, why can't it be accidental? He says that as if it's impossible for it to be accidental.
Not even just accidental, but like some of like the facts about reality are pretty deterministic. Like we could say that like the laws, some of the laws of physics, and that their constants are like they're determined to like work a certain way, or like the laws of physics are made to work a certain way, and they're not just kind of like conjured up necessarily, but that they have some sort of logic intrinsic to them anyways.
It's just a way of measuring and verifying the laws of physics, pretty much. Like how gravity works and everything like that, right? It's not something that actually... How do I put it? The logic didn't really exist until we made it exist to measure something that is measurable in reality, kind of thing.
Like we're able to understand it through our systems of like math, logic, etc. Like we're only able to comprehend it through our own like constructs, really.
And
I feel like this would apply to like other species. Let's say an interplanetary species is able to figure this shit out too. Like, like they'll have their own system that's probably independent of us, but either way, like gravity exists, whether it's in the name that we give it or otherwise.
The big thing that we need to really hammer home here as well is the difference between subjective logic and formal logic. There's more than one kind of logic contrary to what these guys want you to believe. Because subjective logic is logic based solely on our personal experiences and stuff like that, right? And then formal logic is stuff like math, equations, the laws of physics and stuff like that, because it's logic documenting real world stuff to be able to explain it and everything. Subjective logic is going into the realm of like more vague philosophy or more like theology and stuff like that. That's subjective logic, not formal logic. But this opening statement, I watched it at least like 4 times trying to figure out when he actually provides any evidence. And I'm not kidding. I even had ChatGPT look it over too, just in case my brain was... I had a brain fart or something watching it all 3 times. And even it was like, yeah, he doesn't actually prove anything. He just says shit, basically. Even ChatGPT...
He just asserts it.
He just asserts it with literally no evidence whatsoever. That's the entire issue with the transcendental argument of God, is that it's entirely circular. And it's kind of built that way on purpose because what was that?
It begs upon itself. Like it begs God in this case. Like God has to exist or else the argument doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like they say that God has to exist or else nothing works. I mean, not really. The argument just doesn't work.
You'll see. Let's continue.
Yeah. Unplanned and chaotic, or there is a purposeful creator who designed and sustains the rational order we experience. If you choose the accidental option, the possibility of knowledge collapses. Meaningful statements and logical inferences cannot be grounded in a random, purposeless universe.
Why? He never says why.
Also,
and this guy doesn't do a good job pushing back on why, by the way.
It's also not the only option either, no? Like,
it's a very much a false dichotomy.
You don't have to have absolute knowledge. Like, Like I could be like, fuck, there's like not totally absolute knowledge in weather reports all the time.
Yeah, we
Whenever
can't.
there's like a 90% chance to rain, what they're saying is specifically is that 90% of this area, this specified area, is likely to get rain. It's going to get rained on. Whether 90% does get rained on, it's up in the air, and it's really hard to know exactly how much. But
Yeah.
in that case, like we have knowledge, oh, it's probably going to rain where I'm at,
Yeah.
and most people are fine with understanding that.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the very act of making an argument, defending or rejecting God's existence, already assumes that knowledge is possible and reason is reliable. This undercuts the
Maybe not on their own, no, but when you combine the two together, different branches of epistemology, rationalism and empiricism are the two big ones that kind of go together, because that's how we do studies, that's kind of how we interpret what we see and everything like that. We use rationalism for logic, and we use empiricism for the measurable, verifiable stuff that exists in this material of reality. That's kind of how studies work. The methodology is rationalist. The sample size and all of the data that it actually has is the empiricist part. He completely lacks the empiricism. He completely tosses out rationalism, except he tries to pretend he's using rationalism. And what he's relying on entirely is very faulty foundationalism. Those are like the three big branches of epistemology that I'm aware of. It's
Gotcha.
so brain dead. I don't understand it. Hi, hey Cad. I'm just talking to my chat here. They're also watching. If you want to talk to
Or-
your chat too, just you can as well.
Right now my chat is
Accidentalist
kind of
view, because
non-existent, so
Oh, fair. We're still small.
they rely on the
Very
intelligibility
small.
of reality to argue against the worldview that makes reality intelligible in the first place. Thus,
that
by
sounds
the
like word salad to
impossibility
me.
of
I'm
the
not even gonna
contrary,
lie.
It is. It's all word salad.
only
It just-
a purposeful framework, revelatory theism, can justify knowledge. Why revelatory theism? Because the God in question must communicate truth and ground reason, not merely exist in the abstract.
But it only exists in the abstract. What?
That's the issue, is that God
That's the entire problem,
not-
dummy.
the God concept is not something that it can, in the theist mind, be empirically like grounded in. There's no like way to test the methodology of God as to whether he exists. There's no
Oh,
way to like
boy.
test whether God exists under their framework. So it's impossible to know whether
It's impossible
whether
to
he's
know
like
it at
able
all.
to interact with reality.
It's
Like,
literally
it's
called-
impossible to know whether he can interact with reality. Like
It's called
that's
the
it.
transcendental argument of God for a reason. Transcendental means it's not in this realm of existence. It's somewhere above us. And if we can't
It
even
literally
discover, we
doesn't
can't even prove,
exist.
we can't even prove that somewhere above us exists, then it's like, what am I supposed to believe? That's what leads me to agnosticism rather than atheism, because it's neither provable nor disprovable, you know?
I think the
If our rational
we can just name the
faculties are to be-
transcendental argument as the argument that doesn't exist.
Kind of, pretty much, yeah. It even I looked it up. Apparently, we'll just call it the TAG or tag from now on. Apparently,
tag.
the tag isn't even mainstream in Christian thought. Apparently, it's even fringe there. Like, apparently, William Lane Craig
same thing
even
with
says it's fucking stupid.
presuppositionalism too. Like all both of those arguments are very fringe. Like most Christians don't really use that.
Like, it's
They use,
layup
like,
logic.
other methods.
If we can catch these guys and keep them on the back foot the entire time by not asserting ourselves as atheists, which I'm not even an atheist. I'm not sure what you are, but
I'm agnostic.
yeah, just purely agnostic, then they will have nothing to push back on us on, like he's going to do with this guy. And we'll be able to dominate the frame the entire time, and they're probably going to get super mad. Cat, agnosticism and atheism aren't mutually exclusive. Well, the issue with this kind of debate is that they will focus more on the atheist part than the agnostic part. Personally, I'm strictly agnostic. I don't lean towards atheism or theism at all. But agnostic atheists go on these kinds of panels and argue for like against the transcendental argument of God, and then they just have their logic flipped back onto them. Which honestly, in the case of atheism, is entirely fair, because atheists are just theists, but backwards, from my perspective. Atheism equals loss of belief. agnosticism equals lack of knowledge. Well, how can you lack a belief of something that you can't even disprove the belief of to begin with? That's why I don't. That's why I don't align with
if you
atheism.
don't know, yeah, if you don't know whether something exists, it's really hard to have a belief in its existence, like in a generic God.
Yeah, I just don't lean towards lack of belief or lean towards a belief, just because there's no way to prove it one way or another.
I think it's pretty safe to say that a good amount, or if not all of the gods that concepts that currently exist are they don't really work.
I would
It's
say
pretty
the
safe
Christian.
to say that they likely don't exist.
I would say the Christian God, at least, probably doesn't exist just because of how much of a Frankenstein amalgamation it is of previous religions and paganist thought.
It's all paganism, baby.
Yeah.
Be valid.
I mean,
We need
I mean, if you think about it, the Holy Spirit is basically just an attempt to kind of throw in like pantheism,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I need to read more on that, though. It's not going to work on these kinds of guys because most likely these are the kinds of guys who say the Bible is divinely inspired, which means it could take from whoever it wants, and it's just that God revealed it through them for some reason.
Well, if it's all divinely inspired, then I mean, in that case, like God can't really be. This is what I was talking about earlier, is that at that point, if it's divinely inspired, and now we're holding God to like a kind of truth or false like framework type of deal. We're trying to figure out what the facts are about God's divine inspiration into people.
All I know is,
and it's either you either have the idea where people are just bad at translating it. In that case, you have questions as to whether God can really accurately communicate things, or God is just incoherent as fuck because of all the contradictions, yada yada yada.
All I know is they better be prepared to deal with the flying spaghetti monster and Pastafarianism. That's all I'm gonna say.
True. I'm a true Pastafarianism.
Hell yeah, dude.
Do you prefer? Are you an Alfredo realist?
I would say I'm a meatball-arian.
There you go.
Breaking science, God is
The
created by
cult
humans.
of mac and cheese.
And reveals himself in a consistent, intelligible way. A purely material or accidental process can never truly vouch for the certainty of reason. It simply lacks the resources to do so.
What the fuck does that even mean? I don't think he knows
Run
what
that back
he's saying.
like 10 seconds.
Yeah. How do I?
It's not
145. We're going back here.
In a consistent, intelligible way. A purely material or accidental process can never truly vouch for the certainty of reason. It simply lacks the resources to do so.
What the fuck does that even mean? I think he's just saying shit. It's word salad.
The thing is, even if that were true, that means that also that the God concept you would have to account for literally everything, and it likely doesn't.
Yeah.
And at least Christians haven't been able to pull that off.
Oh boy, this is gonna be a long debate.
Not that we must prove God using autonomous human standards. That would treat human reason as though it existed independently of God. In reality, God is prior to all proof. God's existence provides the very preconditions for rational discourse. As has been said, there is no purely rational case for God. There is only a theistic account of rationality itself. Arguments do not stand above God to measure his reality. Rather, God's revelation makes arguments possible at all. In short, if we assume a world of pure accident, our statements, this debate included, become nonsensical.
In order for it to be pure accident, that would imply that it would have to... something else was meant to happen. Like, who's making it an accident? I don't understand how it's an accident. Because it implies that this wasn't the way it was supposed to be.
It implies an external actor acting upon this who's imperfect. It just implies an imperfect God, really, actually.
Some sort of alternative. I don't know what is the accident and what was supposed to happen instead. It's just like he says so much shit and then he never backed it up. He's just bouncing from one point to the next, basically gish galloping. It's ridiculous.
He's asserting that there has to be a teleology to the universe, and there really isn't. There doesn't.
At least measurable.
Necessary.
It's
Like,
not. It's at
that
least not
no,
provable.
it's just that there has to be some sort of purpose. There isn't necessarily a purpose, in my opinion.
Well, a provable one at least, I would say.
Yeah.
Because a purpose has to be granted by some sort of entity. But the issue is if you can't prove or disprove that entity, then I don't see why I should believe that purpose. Or believe it's an accident or on purpose or whatever the sort. That's how
True.
I come to conclusions about like religion and stuff.
We can't ground reason, logic, or any form of valid knowledge. But the moment we use reason, we affirm a framework in which reason makes sense. A purposeful world created and sustained by God. That is why I maintain that God is real, by the impossibility of the contrary.
Why is it impossible? He won't tell you why it's impossible. He just asserts it's impossible.
He's talking about the impossibility of like the opposite of that happening.
I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know why it's not why it's impossible though. He doesn't explain how it's impossible. Is it just because it's like astronomically rare for it to happen? Because the chances are never zero. There's never a chance for zero for anything in this world typically.
And by the necessity of a rational foundation. The only coherent grounding for reason and knowledge lies in a revelatory theistic God, the Christian God. Now, I'd like to talk about the difference between an internal critique and an external critique.
We're going to be doing
In general,
external
an internal
critiques.
critique examines a view, theory, or system by accepting its core premises or values.
I believe this
and
is
then
like some
showing
sort of
how it fails
Hegelian
on its
shit
own-
too.
showing how it
Internal
fails on
critiques
its own
are.
terms. In
Think
other
so.
words, an internal critique
Let me turn on my
tries
fan.
to
I'll be
work
right back.
within the assumptions or standards the system itself claims to uphold and reveal where it might be incoherent or contradictory. By contrast, an external critique examines a view.
Yeah, so to kind of further elaborate on internal critiques, it's basically taking all the sum of the works that exist within a given framework, and you're again like testing it for coherence and also testing the person for their adherence to it as well to some degree.
I mean, the
If
issue
they-
is.
if
What was that?
you go for it.
The issue is with Christianity, it's so filled with contradictions that it doesn't even hold up to the basics of internal critique. It's just that Christians have found ways to bullshit their way out of all the contradictions that the Bible has. And also, one second, my chat said some. Cat says he should be asked to prove that objective reason exists, prove that God's reasoning is correct, creating the material world doesn't have a monopoly on social constructs, and that he's not lying to us. Yeah, that's basically what we're going to be proving on him. We're going to be basically pushing. Who says that you're correct on all of this? You've got to prove it, you know? Because the transcendental argument of God isn't proof. It's not even inference, because inference is based on some sort of evidence. It just says shit, and then asserts it as true. You know, it's a pure assertion based on literally nothing. He starts from the position that God already exists and then work backwards. That's how his entire thing seems to work. But
Because
yeah.
the opposite cannot be possible, according to him. That's like quite literally the only reason that they'll give.
Well, yeah, but yeah,
because it can't be otherwise.
Yeah, you have to ask them then why is it impossible?
Which in of itself is just a false dichotomy, because another transcendental God could exist, or another God that adheres to transcendental arguments could exist.
Yeah.
Which implies like there's just so many routes you can take down that type of argument that it's just a really bad argument in general for like not just Christianity but theism.
Yeah.
Critique examines a view, theory, or system from an outside perspective. Instead of starting with the system's own assumptions or principles, the critic applies different values or standards, ones the system itself does not necessarily share, and shows how the system is problematic according to those outside standards. If my opponent tonight wants to levy an external critique, he must provide a coherent worldview from which he makes this external critique. Otherwise, he will be implicitly borrowing from my worldview while trying to critique it, which would be an internal critique. The objection that I must prove every single worldview wrong in order for my argument to work is an external critique. You are imposing a standard on my worldview that my worldview doesn't hold. In my worldview, God is the necessary precondition for knowledge. If you deny this, you are saying that knowledge can be grounded by one or multiple different things besides the Christian God. This statement is not made in a vacuum. This statement is made within a worldview that is not the Christian worldview, and therefore makes this an external critique. I don't expect that to stop my opponent from making this critique, so here is my answer.
Is that
The
you getting a
Trinity
bunch
is
of Discord
necessary.
notifications or me?
Why? The
You
philosophical
what?
Am I getting
problem
a
of the
bunch of
one and the
Discord
many.
notifications, or is that
How do we
you?
make sense of a world that is
I
made
think
up of
that's you.
many distinct things, diversity, and yet seems to be unified? Order, categories, laws. In other words, how can there be unity without collapsing all differences into sameness?
Something else
How
I
can
want to
there be
point out real quick
diversity without
before going on, and something that I want to point out before I forget, is that when we talk about the starting point of knowledge and everything, there's actually a name for the issue of when there's the starting point of knowledge, which is apparently called the problem of the criterion, which is a fundamental question in epistemology about how to determine the extent of knowledge and the criteria for distinguishing knowledge from non-knowledge. That's probably going to be a very central point to our debate as well, just because of the fact that he has a
everything
very
being
big issue with the criteria, a starting point of knowledge. He doesn't have one, which is something that we're gonna have to point out probably by name too, to further kind of show the audience as well that this guy has no fucking idea what he's talking about. Because I don't think he knows what the problem of the criterion is. Criterion, one of those two. That's just something I wanted to point out real quick.
Gotcha.
related chaos. Here are some examples. You see many trees, diversity, but they all fall under the category tree, unity. What makes them share treeness? In science, we observe many individual events, but we believe there are laws of nature, unity, governing them. Here's how the Trinity solves
We don't believe, we prove it. They're verifiable and measurable through different kinds of tools and measurements that we have to determine what is what. That's what these categories are for different kinds of trees or plants.
And not to mention that all of these are not, science doesn't go for things like absolute proof. They go for much more reasonable like levels of evidence, like I guess in terms of law, like you're talking about, like without a shadow of a doubt, like, or beyond reasonable doubt, rather, I think is the term. And then in science, it's what happens is you go through a rigorous like number of basically just scientific trials to falsify a principle.
Basically, just
And
trying to prove something
at a
is wrong
certain
over and
point,
over.
yeah, you're attempting to prove something wrong and over again up until you either find where it fails, or you basically just verify it to be like effectively true.
Mhm.
And I say effectively true in that, like, as far as we know within our current knowledge, that it can't be true, or it can't be false, or can be falsified. So something like evolution, for example, will specifically be one of those concepts that are really rigorously tested, and we know for sure. We have seen for billions of years uh, the change over time in organisms, and we can trace back their lineages back to like certain like proto like beings per se. Like it's so well established that there's no like arguing against it from any serious scientific standpoint.
I have my Philosophy 101 book that as well.
God is both one and many. One being eternally existing
I
in
gotta
three
give that
distinct
to you
persons,
later.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Each person is fully God, yet there are not three gods, but one God. This means
Lol. just one lol.
Oh yeah, something that I saw that was
in
brought up.
itself is a contradiction, really. It's
Something that
three
I
beings,
actually
but also one.
saw that was brought up is the fact that the Trinity, the Holy Trinity, actually contradicts one of the laws of logic, which is the law of, I believe it's identity. That something can only
I
be
wanna say it
one
is
thing, and
identity.
it can't be A is A, and A can't be B or anything else like that, right? The law.
Yeah, it can't be A and not A.
Yeah. So the, what should we call it? The Holy Trinity is logically not possible because God can't be three things at once. God is God. God cannot be God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's something that somebody else actually pointed out. And ironically enough, that doesn't come from Christianity. It comes from Aristotle, who is a Greek pagan.
Yeah, and another thing, this is when I was like Catholic too. Like I couldn't even fucking understand like how that would follow, because there's a specific diagram that you were just mentioned earlier that God is not, or God the Father is not, God the Son is not, God the Holy Spirit, but they're all somehow God. They're like three different beings, but they're also one. That I could never really wrap my head around. Later,
It,
it's just because
it's
it was a
illogical.
contradiction.
It's literally
It,
illogical
like, it
by the
entails a
laws of
contradiction.
logic. There's three laws actually. It's the law of identity, the law of non-contradiction, I think, and the law of excluded middle.
Mhm.
But we could go over all of that later on. That's actually in the book. I just sent it to you actually. That's about
Sweet.
like
All right.
$20 worth of book right there. You're welcome.
Solid.
I have the whole entire
I've got,
series, and it costs a lot of money, but it's worth it.
yeah, I've got like, I have hundreds of dollars of legally purchased and acquired books
Hell yeah,
that I
Ritter.
have as PDFs.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, I just removed the DRM from Amazon on mine, and then I just put it all on Google Drive, just in case they ban my Amazon
Nice.
account.
This means
Dope.
unity, the one essence of God, and diversity, three persons, are equally ultimate in God's very nature. So in the Christian worldview, unity and diversity are not at war. They exist in harmony from eternity. Therefore, when God creates the world, he creates it with real diversity, many things, that are truly unified under God's rational order, a reflection of his own nature. So the Trinity provides the metaphysical grounding for why unity and diversity can both be real and reconciled in creation. Why can't Unitarianism solve this issue? A Unitarian God, like in Islam, Judaism, Deism, is absolutely one with no plurality in his nature. Diversity must be something external to this kind of God. It's not in his nature. That means diversity in creation is not grounded in the nature of God. It's either arbitrary or less ultimate. It also implies that relation and love are not eternal. Before creation, this God was alone and had no one to love or communicate with. This leads to a monolithic view of unity. Diversity becomes a problem, not a feature. So such a God cannot account for both unity and diversity being equally real and meaningful. And that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Let me get
That was fucking awful, by the way. Just to put that out there.
That was I can't follow, because holy fuck, that it just doesn't sound like anything worth thinking about.
It's nonsense. It's absolute, complete, utter gibberish, and that's what we're going to have to hammer on, because this guy lets him get away with it way too much, I think, when they do cross-examination and everything like that. But this guy, I honestly don't think is a very good debater. I think it's just inherent to atheism, to be honest. I don't think atheists are necessarily the best to go against theists, because, in my opinion, as I said before, I just see them as theists but backwards. And that kind of in part comes from me being a Stirner influenced egoist, which basically also sees atheists as kind of being ideologically captured by their own kind of religion. But that's a whole other thing. I don't want to go into a tangent, but let's hear what this guy has to say and see how he holds up.
that restarted. Let me know when you're ready, Godless, and we'll go ahead and start your timer as well.
So first, I want to thank everyone for being here today to take
You're
part
welcome.
in this debate. I'm going to present.
I forgot that he
for
sounds like
why,
fucking. He sounds so much like Jacksepticeye for some reason. Like, holy
You
fuck.
know this guy? You know this guy?
He sounds so much like that guy. Yeah.
Top of the morning to you, laddies.
Yeah. He sounds like very Irish light. Like, holy fuck.
Kinda.
Specifically, the Christian God is insufficient as to the best explanation of our reality. And why I think theism is insufficient. My arguments basically rely on the prior probability of any one religion being the correct version of theism, the insufficient nature of theism's explanations for events in reality, and the bad arguments used to argue for the existence of God. So first, I want to lay out the prior probability that any one definition of God or theistic belief is the correct one. So currently, there are 4,200 religions in existence today, with many more that have existed in the past. All these past religions have been proven to be false. We know that Zeus didn't throw lightning bolts. We know a rainbow-colored snake hasn't vomited out Australian Aboriginals. We know that Uranus didn't impregnate Gaia to give birth to Titans.
I want you to guess what he's going to say in response to all of this, by the way.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in that more so than like, oh, past religions are false, therefore this one is currently false. Like,
Let me
if that's what he's gonna go down, like
he
cool,
does
but
he does actually go he uses the exact same logic we're going to use on him, which is, how do you know all of this? Because you're asserting you know that Zeus didn't throw down lightning from the heavens and stuff like that. How do you know that? Which is exactly what we have to ask them, ironically enough. He's using the agnostic logic on the atheist when he's the theist. You know? So
yeah.
These are beliefs of past religions. At the time they were considered
You could
to
probably
be
speed it up a little bit.
representations of
Let me,
reality. This is the fate
turn
of
the
all
playback speed up
religious
to
ideas.
1.25.
Even in Christianity, we have obsolete ideas. The creation of the earth in Genesis is not representative of reality. The earth and the diversity of life that we find on earth today was not created 6,000 years ago. Even ideas like God mandating the taking of slaves has changed. There are numerous ways that we know specific definitions of God, like the Abrahamic God, isn't reality. Next, the theism has insufficient explanations for events that happen in reality.
He's making too many positive claims.
The only explanation that theism can provide is
Mhm.
God. Specifically, God did it. The God did it answer doesn't tell us anything meaningful about the events that occur in reality. Attributing some event to God only succeeds at stopping people from critically thinking about why or how some event happened. More specific definitions of God do not provide more information. They only exacerbate the issue. How do you know that particular event was caused by that particular God? I know the problem is that these specific definitions of God can't all be correct, but they can all be wrong. Put plain and simple, there is no connection between this reality and anything supernatural. In order for you to attribute some event to God, you must first prove that this God can even affect our reality. God is not really an explanation for anything. Every supernatural event that supposedly happened in the past has always been proven to be a natural event later. Take lightning, for example. The ancient Greeks thought Zeus wielded lightning as his weapon. Every place struck by lightning was considered sacred. Muslims have also attributed lightning to their God. Jeremiah 51:16 claims that God controls lightning. All these supernatural ideas can be and are false. We know what lightning is. We know that lightning is caused by large collections of positively and negatively charged particles interacting with each other. This
Not a
normally
good
occurs
answer.
in clouds, but also does happen between the clouds and the ground. This process is dictated by the physics of the natural world. We have no need for a supernatural explanation when we have a natural.
Hold up. Yeah,
What's up?
this answer right here, it like here I can imagine Jordan Peterson saying, What do you mean by no?" And then just like smugly sitting back. I don't think you know what no means.
What does it mean to
Like-
know something?
like that's all I'm hearing right now.
When he-
That's gonna be what the question is, I feel.
What do you mean believe?
True. God.
It would. I swear to God, dude, that was so fucking comical. I did not actually expect him to get that bad during that debate, but yeah, we got to get back to this. We still got
let's
so
get back to
much.
this.
One.
There's like
Again,
an
the
hour
only
of
explanation
this.
that theistic
Tell me about
ideas
it.
can give us is God did it. Finally, the arguments for God's existence are unable to sufficiently prove that God doesn't exist. There have been several arguments for God's existence, for the existence of God. The cosmological argument suggests that there is a transcendent first cause of this universe, and that cause is God. This argument makes a leap in logic from what caused the inflation of the universe to God. The bigger leap in logic occurs when it is used to suggest a specific definition of God. I agree that something caused the inflation of the universe, but you don't have the evidence to say that that cause was God. You must first prove that natural events need supernatural intervention in order to happen. Next, the teleological argument is an argument from design. It postulates that if something looks designed, then it must be designed. Everything that was designed has a creator. Therefore, the universe has a creator since it looks designed to us. Just because you think this universe looks designed doesn't mean that it actually was designed. What would be the criteria for determining between designed and undesigned objects? We have natural explanations for how natural objects come into existence without the need of supernatural intervention. And if we have a natural explanation, then we don't need a supernatural one. The moral argument is likewise insufficient. The moral argument speculates that God is needed for morality to be absolute or objective. If there is no objective or absolute morality, then everything is just an opinion. Since murder is absolutely wrong, then God must be the source of this knowledge. Only an absolute transcendent being can provide this basis. But this doesn't make sense with what we experience in reality. If God had done this, then we would expect his moral code to remain absolute across time. Even now, our moral foundations change depending on what society we live in. We would also need to more specifically define this deity in order to argue for their supposed moral foundation. As an example, let's take a look at Christianity. We don't see an immutable moral foundation in Christianity. In fact, Christianity's moral foundation changes depending on time and place. In Numbers 31:17-18, God commands his chosen people to abduct young girls after murdering their entire family, including the young boys. If you transpose that into the present day, these would be horrible war crimes. But it's okay for them to do that because God told them to do it. If this isn't considered good or okay to do now, why did that deity command it? Considering most, if not all, religions of the past, why would their respective deities require they to do any of these things that humanity has done? If this moral code is not immutable, then what explains our changing moral foundation? Since our common moral foundations seem to change with the social norms of a society, it seems like we are the ones that dictate what our moral foundation is. If we are the ones dictating what we see as morally right, wrong, and neutral, then we would expect a changing landscape of morality. That's exactly what we find in religious communities. We see religious people with differing opinions on what their absolute moral code is. Morality is an emergent Okay.
What do you think of that opening statement?
I mean, he's going for the internal critique. I just tried to pause your fucking stream. That's hilarious. He's trying to go the internal critique route. I mean, I'm kind of amenable to that argument just because I think one, it's just fun to run that on deists who are very inadequately knowledgeable on the Bible. But also, yeah, he's gonna have to kind of. This allows him to be kind of open to questions on what he means by no. And I think that's just going to lead to Wi-Fi Gospel giving a strategy or Wi-Fi Gospel strategy on being, all right, I'm going to just make sure we establish that you don't actually know anything for certain. And then I'm just going to use that to say you don't know.
It's the problem of the criterion that I brought up earlier.
Yeah.
How do you know this? Where's the starting point of knowledge? But here's the thing I don't like about internal critique when it comes to religion. It's just so played out. All I see with religion nowadays,
it's very
in
much
religious
the
debates,
Reddit
is like
atheist.
it's Reddit atheism, because I don't think an atheist is capable of doing external critiques, because external critiques can just be applied back to the atheist. Which is why I don't believe, from what I've seen of religious debates at least, very rarely do I see any kind of non-theist go from an external critique, because that can just be flipped back on them. Which is what I want to take this into, precisely because it is such uncharted territory for both sides. And I think that it would also be really fun seeing what he has to say to that uncharted territory.
It's also better than just like the high level, oh, your holy book says something stupid. Here it is right here for all of us to see.
They've had like 2,000 years to come up with excuses for it, so...
I mean, yeah,
Perfect.
true.
Thank you both for your awesome
Doesn't make them
introductions
any
here.
better, though.
Oh yeah, it doesn't make them any better, but in terms of a debate, it just goes back around in circles for the same things we've been talking about for like 7 decades already.
We'll go ahead and move into the cross exams. Remember, these are going to be 7-minute cross exam brackets.
I don't think to be clear, I'm not even sure if we'll have cross examinations, so we could potentially have them being the ones to answer questions the entire time, and we could completely dominate the discussion. Just keep that in mind. We can double check later, though.
Start with Wi-Fi.
I think that's what the parameters of the debate are, really. It's just whether God real.
Yeah, and the thing is,
or whether God is like knowable, I think is the specific one, which I'm not fully on board with that question, because I feel like I feel like there's ways to weasel around it, specifically with like, oh, like I can have personal knowledge about my God through revelation. Ha, I win. Like,
well, yeah, that's why I'm going to try to define the parameters of knowledgeable and set the frame early to be able to keep them boxed in that, rather than letting them squirm around. I'm going to set what knowledge is and how we determine knowledge. based on the branches of epistemology that function together as one rather than individual little things that do their own thing like they kind of want to do, right? I'm aware that they could do that, which is why I phrased it as is God knowable rather than is God real or is belief in God rational. And because we're taking the agnostic stance, they're not going to really have many questions to ask us because our default answer is just going to be, I don't know. It's unknowable, you know? It puts us in a position where we're inherently on top, and all we have to do is just keep asking them questions as they continue to unravel themselves. I'm putting us in a very strategically advantageous spot with how we're trying to argue here, you know? You kind of see where I'm going at?
Yeah, I see.
Cool.
You're both going to get 2. So it's going to be Wi-Fi, godless, then we'll move into the open discussion. But let me know when you're ready, Wi-Fi, and we'll go ahead and start your first 7-minute cross-exam timer.
All right, I'm ready.
You have 7 minutes starting now.
Cool. All right, I can just call you Godless, I'm assuming?
Godless, John. It doesn't matter. Either one
Hello,
works.
John.
Cool. All right, John's probably easier for me. My brother
John
and my
the
father are
dog.
both named John, so there we go. Your arguments from probability. That you say that because there are so many religions that it's less likely that any of them are true? Is that what the argument was?
Well, no. So my point was that they all can't be true, but they can all be wrong, and that considering that, well, I guess the claim specifically for Christianity is that Christianity is the one true religion, and I'm guessing specifically whatever denomination you're in, that's an even smaller segment of Christians out there. You're saying that every 4,199 religions are wrong, but yours is right. So it just seems more special
Right.
pleading that rather than anything that's statistically reliable.
Okay. Would it make sense to say that because there is counterfeit money, that there's no such thing as real money?
No, because there's very obviously like we like I would say that if you to make the analogy appropriate here, if you said that all money was counterfeit money except for this one bill out there, or that maybe only bills from Philadelphia, like I feel like that would be comparable.
Well, I think there's a way to actually measure whether counterfeit money is real or not, and it's based on whether it comes directly from the state, you know? Like,
yeah, there's also counterfeit measures to kind of show that it is the actual money anyways, or the actual currency.
literally,
Like there's a specific set of criteria that the government goes through to determine whether like money is real or whether a specific set of money is real or not real.
I'm gonna use the restroom
And
real
it's
quick.
like exceedingly hard to replicate.
I'm gonna use the
Yeah,
restroom
go
real
for it.
quick, but you can play the video and continue talking since, you know. Yeah. I'll be right back.
Yeah. And like even though there could exist a bill that gets past the threshold of like what the government puts in to determine whether it's counterfeit, we can still, I mean, it's just how we define things. It's just it's a descriptive matter, and at that point everything kind of just breaks down at some point where you can't absolutely prove something. Like there's a specific fill term for it too that I'm not thinking it could, or that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. I think it has something to do with all viewpoints going into like a hard like solipsistic view, where one of them where it's either like an infinite regress, circular, or other, or something else like that. Nothing ever like terminates absolutely in a very like clean way. But yeah, at some point we're kind of just limited by language to it's like define things perfectly, and also it's just because we make definitions to be descriptions and not something propositional either.
Okay, the only point I was making is that just because there are false religions doesn't mean that there isn't a true religion. You would agree, right?
No, yeah, true. I specifically said they all can't be true. So I mean, it's either exactly one is true or they're just all wrong.
Cool. So you also made some claims. Am I getting any background noise, or am I good?
No, you're good.
Sorry, there's this weird beeping noise. I can't. All right. Anyway, sorry. You were saying you had made some claims that there were naturalistic supernatural explanations of stuff like lightning and whatnot that were proven to be false later on that we have naturalistic explanations for. You said we know that these religions are false because of that. If I have that correct me if I'm wrong, how do you know that?
Well, I mean, because the claim for those religions, like we could take one that's not personal to you, and like the Roman pantheon, or Greek pantheon, whichever one. So we know that one of those gods, Zeus, I believe in the Roman pantheon, wielded lightning. He created lightning. He had like a hammer, and he would pound lightning and everything like that, and then he threw lightning. So that's the claim of the religion, and what we understand now is the scientific explanation I gave about positive and negatively charged particles
Cool.
and everything like that. So like we've grounded something in reality with practical explanation versus the supernatural.
enough.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So in order to know that scientific explanation, you rely on the scientific method, right?
Yeah, scientific method is geared towards revealing the truth of reality. So yeah, I would say so.
Okay. And does the scientific method rely on induction?
Induction.
So the belief that the future will be like the past.
I mean,
That's not what
yeah, I mean,
induction
that's part
means.
of-
Yeah, oh yeah, he's about to get into it. Yeah, that's just uniformitarianism.
I'm back.
Okay.
You talking to your chat too, or?
Well, I mean, your chat hasn't been going, my chat hasn't been going, so I'm kind of just talking into the ether here. But
Cool.
yeah,
This
no,
will
we're
be
getting
up as a
into
rewatchable stream for my YouTube, so that's good.
yeah.
Let's go.
But yeah, no, they're about to get
uniformitarianism, which
into
is kind of one of the
yeah, they're getting into like uniformitarianism and
Got it.
like how you get knowledge scientifically.
Okay.
the bedrock things of science in general.
Right. So I'm sure you're familiar with David Hume and his problem of induction. You familiar with that?
No, why don't you tell me about it?
Yeah. So basically, the problem of induction is that we can't know the future based on what the past is. So how would you solve that in order to use the scientific method?
I mean, I don't think that we say that we know the future, but we can,
hold up?
for everything, for all of our.
Is he talking about specifically like absolutely no? Is Hume specifically talking about like having absolute knowledge of the future, or
I don't really know
any
too much
knowledge of
about
the future?
Hume's challenge, so I can't really say anything on that. I can't.
It's like in that case, I would just say like I would just grant that, and that's just what's baked into like the existing scientific method. There are ways that we can falsify a certain idea in the future in such a case where it could be wrong at some point, or that at some point there's something we might know where laws of physics just break down, like in black holes.
Yeah. Ooh, just
that's
lost
it.
connection for some reason. Okay. I think it's back.
Our observations,
there we go.
It seems like how natural processes have operated in the past, they continue to operate in the present, and they're unless acted upon by some kind of outside force, they will continue to operate the same in the future. I don't see any reason why it would change. So like it's more about it being a secure guess, like a very strong, educated guess about what will happen in the future.
So if you make this educated guess of what will happen in the future based on the past, is that not begging the question?
No. How would that be begging the question?
Because what I'm asking you is, how do you know that the future will behave like the past? And correct me if I'm wrong, what I heard you say was the past has behaved like the past, so therefore the future will.
No, I did not say the past has behaved like the past. What I said was that that natural processes have operated the same as we've observed directly. So there's no reason to think that these natural processes would operate any differently in the future. Not saying that they definitely will operate the same, but it's more about coming to the conclusion that more likely than not they will continue to operate in the same manner.
1 minute.
Would you say that?
And not to mention too, there are scenarios where like the laws of physics could actually break down, and there are ways, or there are already like there exists ways to figure out where that breaks down at, and say, all right, we don't have like a set of physics that explains X, Y, and Z phenomenon. Like we already kind of set those, or really science already sets those constraints beforehand.
Yeah.
And they say that it works within like this set of conditions. So like that's not even just like uniformitarianism now, but like now we we have like a fairly well-defined like set of parameters where things are able to work the way they are. And so it just doesn't even work this way too. Like the only other way that we could see these things deviate is if there's some new phenomenon that gets introduced that changes the way that everything works.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Yep.
Would you say that saying that there's no reason to believe they will change in the future is actually giving me a justification of why they will behave like that in the future?
Can you rephrase that?
Yeah, so my question ultimately is, how do you know they will behave like that in the future? And your answer
I'm not
was, we
saying
don't
that
have a reason to believe they won't.
No, I'm not saying that I know that they will behave that way. What I'm saying is that we can be reasonably justified in assuming.
Just to cut
that
you off
they
because I
will.
don't have a lot of time. Sorry to do this to you. Yeah, if you can't know that the future will be like the past, i.e., induction, how can you trust the scientific method? That'd be my last question.
Okay, so I would say that we can trust the scientific method because it's going to give us the best possible conclusion that maps to reality. If something changes, like in a natural process, then what we do is we go back to the drawing board, we work that change into our model, and then we have a better predictive model for the future.
That is time there. Thank you for the great starting cross exam. Let me know when you're ready, John, and I'll go ahead and start your 7 minutes.
Okay. All right, go ahead and
You
start.
ready?
Yep.
Perfect. You've got 7 minutes starting now.
Okay, so what is your denomination of Christianity?
Right now, I'm leaning towards orthodoxy, so we can just use that for this debate.
Okay, Orthodoxy.
Eastern Orthodoxy.
Eastern Orthodoxy. Okay, that's interesting. I don't think I've had to have I don't think I've had a conversation with somebody in the Eastern Orthodoxy. So just because I don't have all the denominations memorized, would you believe that God is omniscient?
Yes.
Okay, so he's omniscient, meaning that he knows everything. And you would believe in he's a triomni God, right?
Triune, yeah.
No,
triomni. Sorry. Yes.
Triomni. Okay, good. And then you would agree that Jesus is God, right?
Yes.
Okay, and given that, then would you identify God of the Old Testament as also being Jesus?
So we have to be careful when we talk about like specifics like that. Like not every time God is mentioned in the Old Testament is it speaking directly about Jesus, but is Jesus in the Old Testament? Yes, through the theophanies as an example.
Well, no, what I'm talking about like is if Jesus is God and God is in the Old Testament, then Jesus would be God in the Old Testament, right? Or are you saying that Jesus is a distinctly different
God
person?
hasn't changed throughout the Old and the New.
Okay, all right. And I guess you would agree that God is the moral foundation of like humans, right?
Yeah, I believe in divine command theory. Not that simply God just commands what is true, but that what is true is based off of his nature.
That's
okay.
God, there's so many ways to attack divine command theory.
It's fucking ridiculous, man. I don't know how people come to believe that shit.
Well, really, I think at the end of the day, all kind of religious belief falls into that category.
I mean, it has to. It absolutely has to. That's the inherent nature of it.
Yeah, if you think that a God is not only all powerful, but really the more like relevant case here is all good, like all morally good, then you have to justify all of God's actions as good, which again, like all the internal critiques it's so ripe for that. It
so
just
ripe
gets
for it, but then they
Reddit
just find ways to discredit the Old Testament as, oh, that was before the New Testament. That's before Jesus died for your sins and all of that.
Well, yeah. Then at that point, like you don't really have an objective book. At this point,
it's just like there's so many issues with it, but at the same time, they've already been run through so many times that it's like we kind of got to try something new to catch them off guard. That's why I'm not attacking it from internal critique. Internal critique is all they've been facing for the past several decades. It's such low-hanging
fruit.
It's very low-hanging fruit. Even if it's true, which I do believe it is, it's low-hanging fruit. Which is why I choose external. Hell yeah.
Next, this is going to hit a little hard, and there's no other way that I can ask this. Would you kill a child?
Would I kill a child?
Damn, that's crazy.
I bet they haven't heard that one a bazillion times before. Would you kill a child if God told you to? I hear that question like once every single fucking debate about theism.
It's
I
so
swear,
fun.
man. I mean, it's fun.
It's so fun watching
but
every new
it's-
person like squirm around. Like that's it. That's really it. You
I
just
mean,
want to see them squirm.
It's fun, but I do want something like new.
It's
to
like
go to the-
watching it's like watching worms in a terrarium kind of like do their own thing.
Kinda.
Like you know it's not going to be all that interesting maybe, but really
like-
it's just fun to watch them move around sometimes
Kinda like watching-
and see what interesting things they come to.
Watching the clothes go around in the dryer at the laundromat. You know what's coming, but it's kind of fun to watch anyways.
Or really ants building a colony too in a terrarium too. I think that's a little bit better.
Oh, I
so you
got a
get all new designs.
Shit, I got a Twitch user commenting something. It's really counterproductive and efficient that we have an employment system that forces you to constantly prove you're searching meaningless underpaid work, enriching capitalists instead. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but okay. Might just be a bot. I don't
Great
know.
comment, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Gamer Jame.
The next town and kill all the children in that town, would you do that?
If God told me, no. But I'm not a prophet, for example.
Okay, I mean,
That doesn't
the-
matter. Why does it matter if you're a
Whoa,
prophet? You're a
holy
fucking
shit.
follower of God, dumbass.
Wait, he's so
What?
bad at this. What the fuck? I would
What?
disobey God. You're
No wonder he only has like a 200 subscribers. Nobody will listen to him.
holy. It's like I Wi-Fi gospel. If God told me to kill a child, I wouldn't do it. I would disobey God, which would be a sin. I'm good.
I would
But
only do it if I was a
that's-
prophet.
He didn't even like try to squirm. He just flopped.
Oh my god.
So okay, so if somebody that is a prophet of God said that God said go and kill all the children in the next town over, would you do it then?
Like he did in the Old Testament, if I was a soldier in the army of Israel, yes.
Okay, so there is a situation
That's
where
also
somebody-
crazy. So he's psychotic.
Oh my gosh. It depends on your occupation. Got it. Thank you, Wi-Fi Gospel. Preaching the Lord's name out here, man. I'd
yes,
kill
the
a
more
child
that-
if my occupation was that of a soldier of Israel.
Now that actually with that take right there, I might have listened to this before, like a while ago. How long ago was this?
2 months ago.
Oh, never mind.
somebody
I
Paul the
probably
White
heard something
that
else
is
then.
Yeah.
supposedly a prophet.
Oh shit, I actually got to take a couple of medications. I'll let you continue watching and stuff like that. And then I got to go take some pills. I'll be right back.
Heard.
God comes to you and is like, hey, go kill all these fucking Canadian kids. You would happily take up arms and shoot a child in the face.
Well, that's easy. Canadian. I mean, no, just kidding. We are
That's
also on YouTube, so I
wild.
don't know. I don't want to do any TOS, but in this current age where we are now without prophets, no, I wouldn't, because there wouldn't be any prophets to do that. I don't want to waste your time.
do you
but
know
I can
that,
give
though?
you the context of the Old Testament.
I know the
because of
context
the
of the Old
scripture.
Testament. Because of the scripture, where in the scripture does it say that God or Jesus will not appear to anybody else in the future, or not reveal?
Well, it
anything?
says that, yeah. So within Orthodoxy, we believe the scriptures as God's word, and in Hebrew it says that God has spoken in this final time through through His Son. So we know that there are no more prophets.
Okay, all right. Moving on from that, but sticking in the realm of morality here. Since you believe that He is omnibenevolent, do you still consider Him to be omnibenevolent, even though He told the Israelites to go and kill, children, women, and non-warring men?
Yes, and we may be operating on different definitions of omnibenevolent. If you want to get into that,
Well,
I would
mean,
say
what
that
that's-
all of actions,
Well, how do you-
all of
yeah,
God's
how-
actions are loving.
I'm sorry. I'm
That's oh my god. Say if Wi-Fi gospel just defines all actions that God takes as loving, then sure, yeah, God is omnibenevolent, but it doesn't sound really satisfying to say, oh yeah, like I think a benevolent action is when a deity tells me to kill children. Like that doesn't make sense. None of that makes sense at all. It's a real head scratcher. Most people who have moral systems that don't operate this way would also scratch their heads.
needing to process that one. So God's actions, being loving, he literally told Moses to go in Numbers 31. If anybody out there wants to look it up, Numbers 31, God tells Moses to go and kill this entire group of people, including the small children. 1 Samuel 15, 1-3, he specifically lists out the young children and babies as to be killed. So I want to hear you, Wi-Fi Gospel, right now to say that it's a good thing that God had babies killed.
Yes, so especially within Orthodoxy, we believe in an age of accountability. So any child that dies whose will was not aligned with sin would be in a blessed state after their separation of their soul from their body. So I do think that would ultimately be good. Now,
so you're not opposed to abortion, then, huh? You're
no,
fine with
definitely
abortion?
opposed to abortion.
Oh,
This
why?
is a
Hold
commandment by God.
hold on. Why are you opposed to abortion when you just affirmed that? And I would assume that you would consider a fetus or even a gamete or a
Yes.
zygote to be a person, to be a child. If you have an abortion, then they're automatically blessed, and so they go to heaven, right? There's just a whole bunch of zygotes rolling around up there in heaven right now.
1 minute.
Yeah, so God commanded the Israelites to wipe out a nation, and in part of this, the children had to be slaughtered along with everybody, and it wasn't exactly
See, that's just
everybody.
fucking
Even later in
gross
the
to
verses,
me.
you could say,
No, seriously,
"Hey, can you let me
Wi-Fi.
answer the question?"
Well, no, this is my
You don't want to hear the
time.
answer?
I'm back.
No,
That's fine. You don't have to
I've
hear the
heard.
answer,
No,
but
I've heard the
it
answer.
just
Now
makes
we're
me
on
foolish.
whether abortion and what else, killing children, because children are have pure souls,
Oh,
so
great.
therefore they'd be fine. If they would go to heaven. Okay, so
Well,
let
how are
me
you
try to
supposed to
make this
answer
sound
that
coherent.
question? How are you supposed to answer that question from like
Got
our perspective as human beings? We don't know where they're going. Who knows? Maybe they
Well,
were a devil child.
like, of Wi-Fi Gospel's view is that somehow, some way, the child is actually like purely innocent when they die, which again, this could just be a difference between like Orthodox Christians and Catholics here, but there's like a concept of original sin that everyone is flawed in some way. Like,
You know
it's
what's
really strange that it's that they wouldn't also believe that they had some type of sin too. But
You know what's crazy
know.
is apparently that I was looking into the tag, the transcendental, the TAG, and apparently that's not even an Orthodox Christian argument. That's more of like a Calvinist thing because Orthodox Christians are more based in like grounded reason and rationality or something like that. I'd have to go double check, but it's not the arguments that he's making now are not Orthodox arguments. Like, I don't know where the fuck
Well,
he's getting this from. This is like
it sounds like
Calvinist
he's
shit.
very like it sounds like he's very tentatively an Orthodox Christian because it sounds good.
Pardon
And
me.
that's what that's what a lot of these like Christian debaters are going with at the moment.
Being
Is
Orthodox.
that because because it sounds different and it's lesser known, so they can kind of play off of that and not have to be either honest about some of their views and or they can kind of dance around some of those views.
Do you think that's something we should point out, that he's not even using Orthodox arguments for God?
If I would hesitate to do that yet. You'd have to look at some Orthodox, like I'd say I guess theologians.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to look at them and see if what they're saying is like anything different than from what Wi-Fi Gospel is saying, which I would probably think it would be the case that they were saying something.
I mean, I looked at
different than he
I had fucking Perplexity AI look it up just to clarify a couple things, and it said, yeah, not only is this fringe, but it's not even an Orthodox argument. It comes from an entirely different, more fringe Christian school of thought, a different Christian denomination.
So it's just a completely different Christian frame.
Let me double check. Actually, let me just ask Perplexity right now.
So if that's the case, then we should just argue that he's arguing from a Calvinist perspective instead of Orthodox. Just kind of play off of that. It's like, oh, you're a Calvinist. I didn't know that. I thought we were debating an Orthodox. Just do little rhetorical flourishes like that just to piss him off.
Yeah, let me see real quick. I'm just having a look right now.
Be like, so you claim to be orthodox, but
Let's see.
you don't
so
use orthodox arguments.
it's most
Strange.
it's most closely associated with presuppositional apologetics, particularly as developed by Cornelius Van Til and Greg Banson, and argues that the very possibility of knowledge presupposes the existence of God. Let's see here. Let me just go to the conclusion. The transcendental argument for God is not an Orthodox Christian argument in Eastern Orthodoxy, though some Orthodox apologists have adopted it and tailored it to their theology. It is primarily a product of Reformed Protestant subpositional apologetics and is not historic or standard apologetic method in either the Orthodox or Catholic traditions. So it looks like it's relatively recent that some Orthodox apologists are adopting it, but it's mostly like Reformed Protestant shit. And even then,
Yeah,
it's
it's
considered
not-
fringe within that, because apparently even guys like William Lane Craig, who's like a very well-known Christian apologist, says that it's circular and retarded, quite frankly.
Yep.
Let's continue.
No, how am I being foolish right now? You're the one that says, "Oh, it's good to kill babies as long as
Yeah,
God
in your
tells you
world, he
to."
says there's nothing wrong with it.
No. In
What?
my
There's nothing wrong with
worldview,
any
as
of
far no, so in my worldview, there is something wrong with it, but maybe we can get into that
It
later.
just goes against your preference.
No. It's not that it goes against my preference. We'll have to get into it later though, because
Uh-oh.
I know time is about.
Oh, great. He's pulling the fucking Elazar Perez thing. Your morals are all preferences, aren't they, buddy? Oh my gosh. They always
Yeah,
act like
well,
that's a
this
gotcha.
is-
They always like act like
Th-
that's some sort of gotcha
it's
when it
a-
doesn't. Huh?
It's also just a precept argument. That is entirely a precept argument
Yeah.
that they'll use to kind of critique your worldview. It's like, oh, it's just preferences. Anytime someone mentions subjective morality like that, that's just the first thing that gets brought up, because
Wait until they come
that's
across.
the only thing that they can think of.
Yeah, I don't. Wait until they come across me, dude. I'm like super open about being an egoist, so it's like I don't have anything to fucking hide about that. They would. Oh boy, I really wanted to fucking debate Elzar so I could see his face when I told him I'm an egoist to his face, but that's a whole other thing for another day, unfortunately.
Well,
My
he's too
entire-
busy debating OnlyFans girls.
That
so,
is
I
true.
mean,
Yeah,
you're gonna,
he's too busy doing
I was about
that.
to say, you're gonna have to grow a pair and do some content, and then go on the whatever podcast.
Honestly, I'd fly out to the whatever podcast if I had if they also allowed me to spar whoever I'm debating in jiu-jitsu or MMA. I swear, if I end up getting tagged one day and they ask me to come on, I'll be like, first of all, you got to pay me to come out there, because I do know that they pay some people apparently. And then I'll also say, find us a MMA gym near you so I can go a few rounds with everybody in your crew.
That's crazy.
Oh man, dude, you have no clue how fucking cathartic that would be. Especially
Debating in the fucking octagon.
fuck yeah, dude. I want to put somebody in an armbar, man. What can I say?
Chess boxing, not UFC debates.
UFC debates, hell yeah.
point in this section though was to prove that God is not omnibenevolent. His core definition of God
This is a
includes
question.
omnibenevolence. No, this isn't a question. I'm wrapping it up because the time's almost up.
Well, cross-examinations are for questions. You can do that in the open discussion.
Bruh.
Well,
Okay.
that is time.
There you go.
Just
So-
to clarify,
Damn,
though, on a
that's
cross-examination,
crazy.
they are just for
They just
questions, right?
wasted
Why did he just smile after that? Like he did something funny? Call this engineer smiled
was-
after that. There you go. I don't know
God,
why.
that was so cringe.
You should be asking.
Yeah,
questions. It's
godless
okay to make a
engineer,
quick
you need to
statement, though,
flip your
especially if you only have
fedora
10 seconds
with
left,
that
kinda
one.
Like you did at the end of your cross exam, right? That's okay. And then you ask your question, right? Like it's okay to.
Okay,
Use 10
Taco, let's
I
seconds,
move.
didn't think there was a question.
Is
coming
it just
after that,
me,
but
or
it's
does
fine.
Taco's profile picture look like godless engineer, kinda, except with the hat?
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
There really was no time there to respond to a question at that point.
We
but,
found
with
godless
that being
engineers
said,
all.
Let me know when you're ready, and we'll go ahead and start your 7 minutes on your
True.
next portion of the cross exam.
Okay, I'm ready.
Cool. Starting your timer now. You have 7 minutes.
Okay, so I want to hit back on this how you know question. How do you know anything to be true?
Yep, I told you he was gonna bring that up. The problem in the criterion.
First question.
How do I know anything to be true? I have justified true beliefs based on reason, logic, and evidence.
Okay. When you say reason, do you mean the reasoning faculties that you have?
That would be the reason that I'm talking about.
Okay. Now, how do you know that your reasoning is reliable?
I think that it's generally reliable, but not infallible, and I don't think that reasoning has to be infallible in order to be generally
How
reliable.
do you know that it's generally reliable?
Well,
This is what he should have been asking him, but he never fucking did that. And now Wi-Fi's
Nope.
asking it to him. This is applicable to both of them, since they both assert knowledge of something that can't be proven. You know? This is what we're
this
going to
is
be
something
pressing
that-
him on.
Yeah, this is something that definitely needs to be pressed on, because otherwise, like, he gets to do this and he gets to have the smug attitude, really, and
That's
not
why
really progress the conversation. Like this entire strategy does no progress to the conversation. Like the problem is both sides generally agree that our sense data is reliable to some degree, and that no matter what, like, there's of course not infallible, but we have a reasonable idea of how reliable it is,
yeah.
given some external stimuli.
Well, the thing is, we don't necessarily have to even assert that everything we sense and believe is 100% reliable, because that doesn't necessarily exist. That's
No.
kind of part of being an agnostic. He is the one that has to prove that God is reliable and all of that. We don't have to do anything. That's not in our stance, you know?
Yeah, that would,
I mean, at least not in mine. I'm not sure about you, but
at that point, then you're getting into an internal critique there. At that point, you'd have to. You'd really
Internal-
have to, if they assert that
Hmm.
of God specifically,
Well, when
or
I-
the God or the Christian God.
Well, when I was
You'd
talking about
have to-
internal critique, I was talking about more like internally critiquing it from its internal contradictions in the Bible, not necessarily how it works inside the religion itself.
Well,
You know?
you would have to assert that God is always going to be reasonable, and the only way you can really
Well, that's his thing.
demonstrate that is through the Bible, and he would have to assert that the Bible is like all true and that God is perfectly rational,
And that's
and
where
that he
we
knows
would,
this based off of either revelation or the Bible.
and that's where we would externally critique. How do you know the Bible to be true? It's just a book that was
Right.
conglomerated by hundreds of individuals over the courses of hundreds of years at different councils, choosing which books go in and don't go in. I don't need to use the Bible to externally critique its very nature from the external outside of, rather than critiquing it internally with Bible verses that contradict each other and stuff.
because
I mean,
through
yeah,
the
but
evolution-
either way, like either way, it just fails.
Mhm.
Like, there's so
In
many
of,
ways to
Homo
attack
sapiens
this that he would just fucking crawl.
Yep.
and the Homo genus and just animals in general, we've been able to reason our way around our reality, and that has resulted in us developing this reasoning skill that has allowed us to survive. So that's evidence, and there's logic that can back it up. Like the better you can reason your way around
Okay.
your.
Did you use your reasoning to come up with that answer?
I did, yeah. That and
That's
research
crazy.
Wouldn't that be circular?
He doesn't
Don't
know
see
what
how it's-
circular is.
That's first off, that's called like an infinite regression. That's recursive, not circular.
They don't know what
Like
words
that-
mean, man.
There's isn't there the idea that almost any like kind of knowledge would eventually devolve into like solipsism, because you can't justify something like to like an nth degree. Like, at
There's a
some
cer-
point you have to have
I would say there's a certain
it's-
point where foundationalism comes into play, where some knowledge is self-evident just because you're pointing at it, it's right there. That means it's self-evident. That's not circular,
that's recursive, right?
Yes, I think so. I just call it self-evident. Circular would be saying God exists because we need God for knowledge, and since we need God for knowledge, that means God exists. That is circular.
Mhm.
Pointing at something and saying that is real is not circular.
Circular.
Ugh.
Okay, so you use your reasoning to justify your reasoning, and you don't see how that's circular.
No, I use my
What?
That's
reasoning in
crazy.
order to have a justification for the question that you answered. That's not using reasoning to justify
Right,
your
and
reasoning.
the question I asked was, how do you know your reasoning is reliable? So if you use your reasoning as a justification,
no,
to know
no,
that your
so-
reasoning
Well,
is
here's
reliable.
here's the thing. You can't just purely use your reasoning as reliable, because that could just possibly go into formal logic. You need external tools, like maybe a measuring tape, maybe doing using various studies, using all of these different tools that have been created externally to be able to measure and verify various things, like we have to do for studies, for instance, to be able to verify things. Because our senses aren't 100% reliable. You can hallucinate, you can misremember something, you know? That's why we have all of these other methods of external verification, these different tools to verify all this stuff, which is what Godless Engineer should be going into. But I don't know why. I don't know what he's going to say, but I don't recall him actually ever going into that necessarily. You know?
We'll see.
Your question. I did answer your question. I just didn't answer it like your script demands, so you don't kind of you're just sticking to the
No,
script that you have.
You just admitted that.
I
All
don't
right, let's
think
go
I
over it one more
did.
time. How do you know did you use your reasoning to come up with the justification that your reasoning is reliable?
I mean, I used reasoning in order to come up with a justification that fit your question, but that's not a circular logic
circular.
kind of thing. No, it's not. It's
Alright.
really not. But
You said
go ahead.
you also
Oh
said
my
logic.
gosh.
God.
Are you talking
He's
about the
so
What he just needs,
he has like
what he
an
needs to say is like,
Hmm?
you need to say like, oh, this is not circular, it's recursive. It's like a completely different thing, and you're misusing words
Yep.
to try and play into like a narrative
What's recursive
that
mean?
I'm unreasonable.
I don't. I remember the term. I don't remember what it specifically
It-
means.
Let me.
Got to make sure we know our terms
It-
before we go into this. Am I right?
It is, yeah. Like you're basically kind of repeating it. Yeah. It like at some point, like it. What you're doing is like, I know something to be true because of like some like axiom that I hold, because I hold that axiom, because I hold that, because you just eventually like you begin to repeat yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just effectively what I'm saying here is that there's some axiom or some like concept that you just assume to be true,
Yeah.
Um,
and that everyone else also assumes to be true.
Yeah.
laws of logic?
Yeah, that would be part of it. Yeah.
Okay. And what are the 3 laws of logic?
I don't know why I have to repeat the 3 laws. I mean, it's been listen. I'm 40 something.
Can you
It's
answer the
been
question,
a
please?
while. Well, there's like law of identity. I don't know all 3 laws of logic like you're wanting me to do, but I don't know why this has to be some kind of recitation of basic logic.
So you don't know the 3 laws of logic yet.
Nope, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
You know
I did not
things.
say
Let
that.
me,
I
let
did
me
not
finish
say
my
that.
question. It's
I
my
did
time.
not.
That's
He-
crazy.
He didn't even say he knows them. He literally just said he doesn't know them. What the fuck? What the fuck?
It's like, so you don't know the laws of logic.
I need to. I need to.
God,
I need
this
to
is-
rewind this.
So you don't know the 3 laws of logic yet.
Nope, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
You know
I did not
things.
say
Let
that.
me,
I
let
did
me
not
finish
say
my
that.
question. It's
I
my
did not say that. I did not say
Okay,
that.
so then can you answer the question? I'm
I
asking
can,
you
I
a
can
question. Answer
Google.
the
I
question,
can
please.
Google you the 3 laws and I can
So you
repeat them
don't know
for
them.
you.
All right, this is my time.
No,
Please
no,
be
no. I
quiet.
didn't say that I didn't know them. I
This
can't
is my
repeat
time.
them
Please
to
be
you.
quiet.
God
Recall,
damn it,
reclaim my time.
Wi-Fi. Why can't you fucking listen to what I'm answering?
And there's this
That's
crash
the
out right there.
rage. This is exactly the thing about theists, especially guys like this, is that is it just me, or have you noticed that he has a very smug, arrogant aura around how he speaks and how he presents himself in a way? Like he thinks he knows everything. He's coming in this very cocky and overconfident, and that kind of gets under people's skins, you know? That's kind of the big thing with theists in general. They have a very arrogant demeanor around them, which makes you want to blow up in their face. But that's also exactly what they want. You can see on his face right now that Godless Engineer just gave him the reaction he wanted. Which is what we have to be very careful of, because I understand it's very easy to get heated in these kinds of debates, but at the same time, that is exactly what he wants. So that's something I was actually going to go over with you with too, is that we need to be very level-headed when going up against these guys, even if we really want to scream. Because this is...
Yeah, no,
Hmm?
I've argued with flat earthers. They are very, very aggravating to deal with.
I don't know what your
I've
debating
developed a
style
good
is.
tolerance.
I don't know what your debating style is, so I'm
I just
just
repeat,
saying
I-
this just because a lot of people do get
Yeah.
angry visibly and audibly during debates. So
I mean, I more so get excited, less angry, more excited. Where I'm like, I smell blood,
blood's
and I
worst
kind of just like,
debater.
I try to nail in on something like that. Otherwise, like if a conversation's chill, I am chilling. Like I will sit back, and I'm not like really, I'm not too confrontational by that point. But if there's a particularly aggravating person, then hell yeah,
Smell that blood in the
I'll
water, boy.
sling mud. I'll sling mud all day.
I would say in our case, especially since I'm there and I'm very much more of a let them sling mud first rather than just sling mud at the aura that hasn't presented itself as Bloodsport yet. Wait until he gets like this guy, and then we can go in on them really hard. But until then,
I agree
it
entirely.
needs to be
I
like
think it's
very
better for
civilly
us to.
dismantle them, you know?
I feel like it's better for us to keep our cool and like answer them and make them get frustrated whenever they don't like the answers and they can't really adequately explain why.
Yeah.
Like if they claim we're dodging, just say the answer again and like just like go into further detail on why it's not dodging and like they'll just squirm.
Did you see
it'll
what
be-
he said in response to me telling him I'm an agnostic on Twitter? I think I sent it to
think
you
was
actually. I
basically
was
like
like, holy
agnostics
fuck,
don't
he's
exist. Like
he
yeah.
is so fucking doomed, dude. I think his brain short circuited when he typed that because I'm not making a positive claim, you know? I just don't know. It's called intellectual humility, something that's really lacking in the debate space.
Yeah,
Stop
not
skirting.
to mention that
Hmm.
like the problem is that people see like the humility as weakness. Like
Yeah, that's
no.
the thing. Like there's certain points
it's
where you
really
need
hard to communicate.
There's certain
It's
points.
really hard to communicate that humility isn't necessarily like a sign of like weakness insofar as like it's a sign of like we haven't progressed to that point yet where we can know something like that.
I think something that's missing a lot in debates is just saying that you don't know. I don't see anything inherently wrong with saying I don't know something unless it's like a blood sports debate kind of thing, which case I could see why people double down on being really fucking stupid and maybe make stuff up, which I know Destiny has admitted to doing in the past, for example. But generally speaking, what I kind of want to bring back, especially as I grow in size and everything like that, is bringing back that it's okay to say I don't know to something. Show some humility. Not everybody's a walking encyclopedia, and you shouldn't make stuff up to sound like a walking encyclopedia, you know? And this guy's getting humiliated for that,
agree.
and he shouldn't lose his cool. He should be calling out Wi-Fi Gospel for saying that I'm a human. I don't know why you're ridiculing me for that kind of thing. I'm not a fucking philosophy major or anything, you know? Unless he is, then in that case that would be a big flop.
Not to mention that it's like these are questions that you can't really know and that Wi-Fi Gospel can only assert
Yes.
to be true. Like he can claim to have knowledge, but that's all he can do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that needs to be like hounded upon is like you can only make claims.
Yeah.
This idea that you think you know like what truth is, like you don't. You can claim to know that the source of truth, but you'd have to demonstrate that empirically.
Yep.
And
That's what I'm going to be
like,
pointing out in
not
my
just the
opening
argument.
statement. I'm going to be crafting up
Yeah.
and whipping up a masterpiece of an opening statement, and it'll completely dismantle him before he even opens his mouth.
I reclaim my time.
Go
Both bring
fuck
it down
yourself.
Exactly.
Both bring it down like 2 levels.
I'm asking you. You said that you're using the laws of logic to know things to be true, but that you don't know the laws of logic.
Anyways,
Now,
let's
that's fine.
continue.
The law of
Okay,
identity,
three
the
laws
law
of
of
logic, law of
non-contradiction, law of
identity, law of
excluded middle.
non-contradiction.
That's time.
Go
both bring
fuck
it down like-
yourself.
Both bring it down like 2 levels.
That was
And yeah,
he lost the debate there, I think, honestly. I think that's where
like
he lost it.
rhetorically, yeah, he lost it right there.
Like when I
Like
say
I
somebody
can
lost
see
the
where the
debate,
anger is justifiable.
Oh,
but
yeah.
like, god damn, that's really bad.
the thing is, this is something I kind of need to clarify sometimes, is when I say somebody loses a debate, I mean in the sense of, is the audience going to side with them by the end, or are they going to be against them? And in this case, when you say to somebody, go fuck yourself in a debate, I honestly
After
think that's
getting
when you lose it.
questioned, like-
That's when you lose the audience, in my opinion. Because it just sounds so irrational, even if you're right.
At least assuming that the audience is neutral in this case.
Yeah.
Which in this case, they're probably leaning towards Godless Engineer too. But either way, he kind of looks like he's falling apart, anyways.
I mean, it's understandable, but at the same time, it's not going to win
Mhm.
anybody over, you know?
No.
I'm asking you. You said that you're using the laws of logic to know things to be true, but that you don't know the laws of logic. Now, that's fine. The law of
Okay,
identity,
three
the
laws
law
of
of
logic, law of
non-contradiction, law of
identity,
Yeah,
law of
that
non-contradiction,
other
law of
part
exclusion.
stopping right
Oh,
there.
now he's doing it.
Like it, like saying that. Oh, like I know the laws of law, or I'm using the laws of logic here, and then like not really reciting them. Like that's another like rhetorical point that can be exploited.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He should have
There.
just...
Like it is.
I think, is it just me or is laws of logic kind of just like a catch-all term for saying that you're using logic most of the time? I didn't even know there were
It's
laws
just
of
like certain
logic.
principles
I didn't
that
even
you're
know
kind
there
of.
were 3 laws of logic until recently when I read up about it in my book. Um, but yeah,
They're
I'm not,
effectively just operating principles when using like formalized logic.
I mean, I know what they are now, and ironically enough, they come from pagans. They come from Aristotle. Better point that out just as a little gotcha. That would be so funny.
Please be quiet.
True.
All right. Now, how do you know that the law of
He looks so
non-contradiction
mad.
is true? I asked you a question.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. I was too busy trying to concentrate on waiting
All
for
right,
the
so you're
question
just
to come
wasting
up.
your
Oh
time
my
now.
God.
I'm gonna reclaim all this time. You're just gonna have to.
Godless. Dude,
He's
come on.
crashing
That is
out.
fucking horrible.
Bro is crashing the fuck
he
out.
dude's lost it, honestly. And we're only 30 minutes in, too. We still have another hour left. What the
Yeah,
fuck?
he's kind of cooked at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if he woke up on the wrong side of bed or if he's just not able to handle smug aura or what, but holy fuck. This is not good for the atheist.
Fuck.
True.
You're such a dipshit.
Notice how the atheist
For the laws of
worldview
logic, these are-
collapses under its
Don't
own
be so
weight.
sure.
Like,
things that we have noticed about reality, and we have observed these things, and so humans have come up with these laws of logic.
All right, so humans have created the laws of logic.
No, look,
He should have said pagans created the laws of logic. That would have really gotten under his skin. But he doesn't know what the laws of logic are, so.
have observed that these laws of logic hold in reality, and so we have described them.
Okay, so they're real because you observe them.
They're real because they exist, and we have observed them. But I mean, they're real regardless of
Okay.
whether or not we're here to observe them.
I would say.
so what he should be saying.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I would say they are real because they exist independently of all of us via the different tools and methods we have used to create and verify these things. Is what I would probably
I wouldn't
say.
even go. I wouldn't even go that far. I think logic in of itself is a human construct, or at least a social construct that we've created.
It's a. I would say
Because
you're right,
it-
but I do think
It's something that we
hmm?
kind of invented.
I would say you're right. It's just basically explanations for various phenomena that exist in the world, right? But that being said, whether these external phenomena exist, like the sky color or something like that, exist independently of us, I would say we know they're real because we can verify it independently without our senses needing to be present, right? That's what rulers and
Right.
shit are for.
What did you use to observe them?
I mean, I haven't personally observed them, but humans have used, their reasoning skills, their their eyes, their
How did you
Right.
use your eyes to observe a law of logic?
a lot. I mean,
It's
I'm
a
sorry,
good
if you-
question, admittedly, because he
It
cornered
it
himself.
is actually.
He cornered himself in a box because he's too fucking rhetorically weak, and this guy's just exploiting the shit out of it, which he's rightfully doing in his position. But
Like all you need to do is just say we got through this, where we got to this point through reason,
mhm.
through human reasoning, like that is it.
put a
That's all
quarter
you
into-
need to give.
Yeah,
And then he's rambling and he's losing the thread.
I think it's because he's angry as well.
Yep.
to a quarter, you can identify like the law of like a quarter is a quarter. Like that's law of the law of identity.
That's a
Like-
particular instance. A law is universal. How do you use your eyes to view an immaterial universal law?
I mean, I don't.
Well, law is universal if you're using formal logic, not subjective logic like you're using, buddy. All of your criticisms can be applied right back at you. I swear, the fucking lack of self-awareness with these kinds of people is absolutely insane because his critiques are valid. It's just that they can all be applied to him twofold.
The problem is by design, since this is his like time to make the
Yeah,
questions. He's getting the better
cross-examination.
questions in.
That
Like
is
this
true.
cross exam is much better just because we didn't have this conversation before, and we can't have that conversation yet
That's why I'm very
until
glad.
this is completed.
That's why I'm very glad that, as far as I'm aware, we won't have cross examinations. So we will be able to completely hammer the frame the entire time.
Exactly.
I don't know how to answer your
You
question
don't.
specifically.
And trust me, I'm the kind of motherfucker who will literally wrestle. You know what frame control is, right? In the context of debates.
It's frame control, specifically meaning like you're controlling the topic and all of the like ancillary little aspects of it.
Like, imagine a picture frame and there's a big picture and you're putting the frame on certain parts of the picture. That's how I kind of describe frame control in the realm of a debate. There's different topics, and I'm
You're
the kind of
basically
motherfucker
running the debate.
Yeah, basically running the debate. And I would say I'm personally the kind of guy who would rather get kicked off a panel trying to wrestle the frame control than giving the frame to the other guy and letting him control it for the rest of the thing. Like, if the moderator ends up wanting us to move off the topic for whatever reason, I'll say kick me off. Please do. Just kind of prove my point that these guys can't answer basic ass questions, you know? That's going to be how I operate when I go onto this panel. If she wants to kick me off for pushing on these guys for an hour straight to answer a simple question, then I'll do that, you know? And if you're watching this Wi-Fi gospel, no, I'm out for blood. And so is my friend here.
Yeah, so you can't use your eyes to view an immaterial law. So if you
That's
can't
why
prove it's
Elazar ran
irrefutable,
away.
how else do you know it's true?
That is true.
I mean, we can
He
philosophically,
did bitch out.
you know, work through it if you want to.
That's a better answer. How?
That's a better answer. You're an arrogant shithead.
Oh God, he can't stop. He was this close to like getting back to the fucking conversation, and then he just had to crash out again.
I mean, he's not wrong, but it looks horrible.
He's not. He's just crashing out.
He should have just
That's
said
it.
this after the stream was over on Twitter or something, man.
So,
Stop attacking each other.
so, how can we philosophically work through it? I mean, sure. If look, I'll tell you this: if you want a basic class on like logic and shit, go to a fucking
This isn't answering
college
my
class.
question at all.
No, right? Because
I
I'm not
reframe that
I'm not an
because
expert in
what's the answer?
philosophy. I'm an engineer. So like,
A
Okay,
godless
so if-
engineer, ayo.
if you want
said
a
that you know
philosophical
things to be true
explanation,
based on
go to a
logic.
philosophy major.
Okay, so you can't.
Then why
justify-
are you here debating this, dumbass?
Why are we debating philosophy if you don't have like a good grasp on it?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, like, there's a difference between showing some sort of humility in the sense that you're not gonna know everything, and then just using your lack of credibility to dodge a question entirely. You know? Like, there's some questions, obviously, I won't be able to answer as somebody who's not a philosophy major, but, like, for some reason, especially after the way he's been acting, it just comes across as such a cop-out.
Yeah, especially because he sat there and like said something wrong.
Called him a bunch of names.
Like now it's just like called a bunch of names, like all that, like, and also just being wrong on certain things or just saying like really stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like
Not-
now it just looks like he's floundering basically.
Oh, for sure.
The laws of logic are true, but you
I don't
use them
ha-
to
I
know
don't
things.
have
First,
to
you
be
can't
able
know
to-
anything, right?
I don't have to be able to justify
See, like
the
that
laws of
statement
logic
right
in order
there.
to use the
That's
laws of
oh shit, hold up.
logic to
Like
disprove
that statement
their-
right there, like it gets under Godless Engineer specifically because like Godless Engineer invoked the terms.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know what they were, and now he just looks like an idiot. Like
That's
it
why
is-
you have to know what the fuck you're saying, because somebody's gonna probably push back on you for definitions eventually. And then this happens, you know? And that's precisely why I want to push Wi-Fi Gospel on his definitions, because I don't think he knows half the shit of what he's saying. He needs to get his definitions straight before we debate.
exactly.
illogical God.
That's why I also like to use accessible language, because it's very easy to get caught up in this definition game if you're using anything beyond like a high schooler level vocabulary.
I don't have to justify the existence of God to say that he exists then. And that could be a valid answer, right?
No.
Oh, so is it not a double standard to say that you don't have to
Damn.
justify the laws of logic and you can use them, but I have to justify the existence of God? Is that not a double standard?
No, your
Okay.
claim is more specific, and also the laws of logic
you
are
finish your response.
no.
Now, how does reclaiming time work? Did you add time on for me already?
So as I mentioned, I'm not going to be doing that. What I'm going to be doing is basically
What is this, a
reclaiming
courtroom?
time is just, hey, I get my time back, as in I'm
Right.
taking control and asking a question again.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay with not doing anything, but I did say that and you didn't stop it, but that's fine.
Yeah, I was trying to let y'all get through that because there was a little
No
bit
worries.
it got a little bit heated there, right? With that being said, we have a 30-minute cross exam, and then we'll move into the closings after that. I'm sorry, not cross exam, a 30-minute
Oh,
open
do I-
discussion.
Oh,
I know
fucking
you have a
imagine
question.
30 minutes of hell right there. Am I right?
So I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you're right.
I
I'm
was gonna
sorry.
get that
Just
second
change the format. That's my fault. I'm sorry. It's a new format. I'm still getting used to this. Sorry about that. Yes, you do get your second cross exam there. That is a fail on my end. Let me know when you're ready, and we'll start your cross exam time.
Debate
Okay.
fail.
I'm
Moderator
ready.
sucks.
Oh,
Beginning.
You got 7
yeah.
minutes starting now.
Taco.
Okay, so Wi-Fi, you believe in libertarian free will, correct?
Could you? In what way are you using libertarian free?
He better fucking not. Free
Uh,
will is inherently contradictory to theism. How the fuck do you believe in free
God.
will and in a god at the same time?
Well, here's the thing: if you're a Calvinist, then yeah, God controls everything.
He's not a Calvinist, though. He's
Yeah,
not a
that's
Calvinist.
let's see it. Let's see it. We'll see
Free
what he
will.
says.
Free will, like, you know, I guess the free will that most people think of, like, you have the ability to make any decision. And you're free to make any decision, I guess, is the best
God, he
way
can't
to
even say
describe it.
that coherently.
Holy
fuck.
fuck. Did he not? Did he? Are you kidding me?
He sounds like he's floundering here too. What
Oh
the
my
fuck?
god, you can't define free will? It's the ability to choose to do stuff without any kind of external force determining you what you're gonna do. It's the opposite of determinism. There is no determined
this is-
future. Your will is entirely your own, not predetermined. That's pretty much what it is, right?
Yeah,
But maybe.
can't even say that.
Well, it's a tough definition because I don't believe that humans have the freedom to make any decision.
Okay,
I-
so that means no.
I believe that they have
So
the
he is
freedom to make
so he's just a fucking Calvinist. Hold up, wait.
Uh,
Let me see.
the decisions that they are able
Let
to.
me let me
Huh?
ask ChatGPT.
Fuck yeah. Love me some ChatGPT.
Do Orthodox Christians believe in free will?
I just don't see how free will is compatible with Christianity as a whole, because the entire point of God is that everything is planned out. God's plan, you know that saying?
Yep. Yeah. Not to mention that in the Bible specifically, God hardens people's hearts, which is just
Yeah.
infringing on their free will.
Literally.
Like you either believe that God gives you free will or you don't.
I don't even see how God can
that-
give
or
you
that
free
he-
will if everything's predetermined to God's plan.
If God knows everything that's going to happen, he knows everything that you're going to do, and then of
That
course,
means-
you know,
yeah,
all
that's
the mistakes that
determinism.
happen.
That's determinism. That means free will doesn't exist. It's already been determined by God.
It's already like incompatible either way.
It's just a complete fucking coherent and gibberish. It comes with theism, you know?
Oh, okay.
It is
so
a
you're not-
tenet of theism to be incoherent.
True.
I mean, how
Like,
like Trinitarianism, like, like done.
like a free will absolute kind of person.
Well, what I mean by that is, like, I don't have the free will to fly because I can't flap my wings that I don't have.
What? That's not what we talked about by free will here, dude.
You can still choose to attempt to fly. You just fail because of physics.
I
Physics
don't-
is not imposing like a will on you.
Does he
Like,
not know what fucking free will means in the context of philosophy? Oh my god.
like the fact that he's also this stupid is very funny. Like,
Oh, dude. Part of me feels like we don't even need to do research, but at the same time, I feel like we need to know what he's going to say, because this is the kind of guy where he's so bafflingly stupid that he will say the most asinine shit that is so stupid, it will make us start to stutter trying to process how fucking stupid it is rather than it actually being smart. Like, it's so stupid, it's hard to
God.
come up with the response on the spot, because it's like, you could never have imagined him to say something more stupid, you know? It's that kind of stupid we're
you're
talking about here.
baffled by stupidity, basically.
Yeah, we're gonna
what
be.
you're saying.
There's a chance we're gonna be baffled by his stupidity real badly, based on what he's saying here.
I'm gonna get my oven mitt ready.
Okay, well, so what I'm talking about is if you go through a scenario and you make a decision, and then if we were theoretically able to rewind the scenario with all the exact same inputs, you could then make a different decision than you had made, even though there was no change to the inputs of that system.
I'm not quite sure I follow, but I do believe that I have a freedom to make a choice.
Okay. So
That's crazy.
Awesome.
My whole
I
thing of like,
I believe
some
I
of
have the freedom to make a choice, therefore I do.
Oh my
That's crazy.
gosh.
event
That's a
happens and you make
crazy fucking argument to make.
decision in that event. Let's say we rewind.
I genuinely don't think he knows what determinism is. If he knew what free will was in the context of philosophy, he wouldn't have answered with such a stupid fucking answer. And I don't think he knows what determinism is either, because he hasn't brought that up yet. To be able to clarify what he means by free will.
All the exact same inputs, and we come back to that event, and you have a decision to make. Do you think that you will always make that one decision, or do you think that you have the ability to make multiple different decisions, even though nothing's changed about the situation?
I mean, I guess hypothetically, if we rewinded time, sure, I could make a different decision.
Okay, so not a determinist then.
Definitely not determinist.
Okay, and
What a fucking
still
idiot.
affirming that your God is the triomni God, right?
Yeah.
Okay, can you explain to me how omniscience works in your view of God?
He should what he should ask, because this seems like just a roundabout way of asking the simple question of, do you believe God has a plan? That's all you have to ask. I don't know why he's going through all of this fluff right now.
Omniscience
He's
that God
floundering.
It's floundering so bad, man. I fucking hate atheists sometimes.
What is it doing? What is it doing?
What is he doing?
knows everything.
Yes.
Yeah, he has knowledge of everything, past, future, present.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right. So
Exploited
I've got a
godless.
question written down here. I just wanted to make sure that it was going to be applicable to your beliefs. So your theology claims that God is perfectly omniscient, knowing the future, every future event infallibly. That would be correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But your particular religion also claims humans have libertarian free will, or the free will that I've been describing. Well, no, sorry, I wrote it down a specific way, but the free will that I was describing, meaning that they can genuinely choose otherwise at any given moment. But if God already infallibly knows all future choices, I simply cannot ever choose differently than he already knows. My future choices are thus fixed, determined logically by his knowledge. You can't have it both ways. Either your God is not truly omniscient, or humans don't have genuine free choice or free will. So I guess ultimately my question would be, do you think if God knows every single event that's going to happen and every decision that you're going to make, do you still think that determinism is false?
I'm not a philosopher.
That took a while to say, and we're on 1.25 speed, just to keep that in mind.
God, yeah, I kind of lost the thread. It sounded like he was fucking rambling.
Oh my gosh. And he was reading off a question too. Imagine if he was coming up with that off the top of his head.
God.
I like how we came into this hating Wi-Fi, and now we're hating on Godless more.
Well, yeah, because he just sounds so. He's just bloviating.
This is the meme of that one meme of two retards fighting. You know that one?
It is. Indeed.
If you want,
we're just watching it from the sidelines.
Yeah.
Philosophy class.
I'm not asking. Well, no. I'm not asking. Well, I mean, I'm not asking about philosophy. I'm not asking about philosophy.
What do you mean? It is philosophical. What?
What do you mean by I in this case, though?
What do you mean by God? Oh wait, he actually did say that.
If it's a philosophical question, but I'm not asking you basics about philosophy or like how philosophically prove God is omniscient or something. I'm asking you, if God is omniscient, then how can it also be non-deterministic?
That's a good question.
Because there's things such as causal determination or over causal determination, not determinism, determination, which is the view that both God and man choose the same event and thus are both free in their choice. For example,
what?
That's not coherent at all.
The law of
choose our event.
that sounds like the law of identity shit. Like, one of the laws of
Like, if
logic is being
God-
broken there at least. That's all I know. It's 10 p.m. You got to give me some credit here.
True. Wait, we really got to fucking hammer down on this because I feel like he's going to use this to weasel around a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like this part is crucial here.
Well, if
It's
I
like,
take
what
two
exactly is wrong with this?
This is
Like,
gonna be
what
like more of
exactly
an
is
open
wrong
panel
with-
question, though. We got to get him on. Is God knowable and stuff like that? Oh yeah, there's a whole God knowledge debate.
I mean, but
that's on the
well, here's the
channel.
thing, because that would escape one of like the I guess the issues with theism right there. That line between determinism and free will.
Mhm.
Like, he's saying that both humans and God have the free will.
We
but really,
both
in
make
this
the
case,
same
God's
decision
will is more imposing.
somehow.
Like, but also like God's will is more imposing in this case. No.
Yes. What is God just going
Like
to
if
coincidentally
God is willing
choose-
this to happen, the problem is I don't think we can really choose in that case.
Yeah, if
Like, if
God's
God already knows what's gonna happen, like there is no other scenario.
So does he not believe in the concept of God's plan or something like that? Or is he saying that God chooses alongside us every time we make a choice? Like, I just chose
Well,
to fart just now. Did God choose that with me?
Not to mention that, yeah, there's just no other options. Like, humans would actually have no options. What he's basically saying is we have the free will to choose the one scenario that's happening.
Yep.
That's all he's saying, which makes no sense.
matches, and I like them at
Like,
the same
that
time.
just fails.
Oh yeah, I do.
Sorry, go
Like
ahead.
I said, I do have this other debate that Wi-Fi Gospel was in. We can watch that later, like maybe tomorrow, because it's gonna be late by the time we're finished with this one. There's so much to go
True.
through. You up tomorrow?
I definitely am up tomorrow.
Sweet. We'll do that tomorrow too.
At
then.
least up until midnight, because I do have to catch a raid by then. But I think we'll
A
get it
raid?
done way before then. Yeah, wow raid.
Oh wow, raid. Got it. What time is it for you?
Yeah. Right now it is also it's like 9:59. Yeah,
Okay, we're on the
it would
same
be at
time
midnight
zone.
my time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I don't usually stay up past midnight, or if I do, it's like kind of just to watch TV and zone out and stuff like that. So we would be doing it way before then.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, I
light a
think same
candle
time
with
would be good.
Nice.
them at the same time. You can't tell me which match lit the candle. They both lit the candle, and yet the candle is lit. So the same action comes from two free choices.
No, but I mean,
No, what?
You're saying
I don't. What the fuck is he even talking about?
So
anymore?
God chose for us to be able to light the candle, and then we lit the candles. Is that what's going on? Like,
So it's God's choice.
yeah, it just sounds like it's his choice at the end of the day, and we're just there to like complete that.
Like what
Like,
he needs to ask
he's-
is, what if I want to choose differently than what God chooses? You know?
And like, and if it's impossible to know that, then like, what's the difference between my decision and God's?
And if God's the one that's choosing everything, then isn't that already determined?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many
Yeah,
flaws
it's-
here.
It's so incoherent. Like
But
did he not think this through at all?
We'll see.
I
Let's
don't
see.
think godless engineers. Hopefully, godless engineer knows this fucking argument. Cause at its face, it just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
you were to make a different choice than light the candle, then that means God is wrong, right? Or are you saying that?
No,
if
I mean
you,
God
Okay,
would
he-
also make that choice.
well, see, that seems like an impossible.
Oh yeah, everything.
So
What?
it's just not falsifiable. It's not.
It's
so then you just can't falsify
unfalsifiable.
it.
It's unfalsifiable.
So,
Every
yeah,
choice you
it's
make is
just like
God's
you're-
choice, and if you make another choice, that's also God's choice. What?
Wait, so then is it God's choice then to sin as well? Like,
That
Hold
is
on,
true.
wait.
That is true. Is
Wait,
is
hold
God
on.
determining for me that I'm gonna go fucking jerk off tonight? Mm.
is
Yeah,
God,
God
telling me
chose
that
what-
I'm able to?
It reminds me of this meme
He's
that I
allowing
have,
me to sin.
where like
That's crazy.
this reminds me of this old ass meme I have in my main folder where it's like, you have a porn addiction? Don't worry, Jesus will help you beat it together, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Falsifiable position to hold then, which I feel like
It's a good
we
position.
can do.
Yeah, it
To
is
be
unfalsifiable.
Is a good position.
Well,
He's
like you can't falsify
what?
position. Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
What?
holy shit!
This is the level of intellect we're going up against right now? Holy fuck!
Oh, you
Oh
can't
yeah, it can't be
falsify a
falsified.
position.
That's great then.
No, that means you can't determine whether it's true. You fuck.
Oh my god.
Oh, that hurt. That actually hurt.
Ah, I gotta fucking
It-
make this a
I
YouTube short,
would
man. I
have
gotta make
to-
our YouTube short
I would have
reaction.
to concede the debate right there. Like at that point, like I'd sustained too much brain damage.
I'd probably get out of my chair laughing.
Oh, that's so horrible.
Oh, man.
That like legitimately hurt me.
Holy shit.
I've heard some
I mean,
stupid shit come out of people, but God, that is wow. It's not falsifiable, therefore it's a good position. I
Oh, that is so
me.
funny.
I would disagree, but
This-
I understand.
this
I
would be a
would
cakewalk if you say
disagree.
shit like that.
Okay. That's an understatement.
Actually, yeah, I disagree with that idea. I think you should falsify the position, herder. Like,
Oh man. Okay.
You know, being a Christian and religious apologist, I can see the appeal to that.
1 minute.
1 minute.
Is that all he
okay.
has to say?
wow, that's it.
What? Oh man.
Like all you have to say is,
Uh,
oh, so then you can never know that whether this is true. Like you can't make a proposition out of this. Like if you're saying that something is not falsifiable, then you can't. There's no proposition.
This is ridiculous.
There is no
man.
truth claim at this point.
Holy fuck. Okay, let's continue.
I'm going insane. Like, am I the only one who thinks that like that's such an easy layup?
It is incomprehensibly stupid how much godless engineer is fumbling the ball on this right now.
God.
Godless engineer, you mean?
You're-
Let me see. So on truth, so I know that you've talked a lot about like truth, knowledge, how you can know those things. I've been watching a lot of your debates here recently.
And you come
I'm-
in like this?
wow.
You've been watching his debates and this is how you're performing?
Wow, man. This is
This is
that's
sad.
depressing.
Bro thought he was Batman, but he
depressing.
turns out to be, I don't know, Man Bat.
Damn, that was a good.
I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
you should use that one. You should use that one. It's like, you're Superman. Nah, you're man super. God damn. That
I
was,
got him there.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious about like if you can give me a practical explanation as to how God
well, that's your first
um,
mistake.
but like
Keep in mind, this is on 1.25 speed still.
what role
Yeah,
does God play?
But your first mistake
like,
is thinking that he's gonna give you like a practical answer.
The first issue was saying the word practical.
in knowledge or reason or truth. Like what is the practical way that he grounds that, or what is the practical way that we can know that
Yeah.
that God is necessary for those things?
Through divine revelation. So you got kind of asked two questions, but the reason that God helps us or makes us to know things is through
That
divine
is
revelation.
time. However,
Oh, divine revelation. Are you? Oh, and it's time too, so we can't push back against that. But holy fuck, divine revelation, man.
Yeah, so two Christians disagree on one thing. Yeah, resolve that, please.
Yep.
That's all. That's all
We'll
you do.
have
That's,
God do it.
Yeah, God. All you have to do is open up the Bible. All right, perfect. You two are both opening up the Bible. You go to the same passages, and you both still disagree. Like,
Yep.
or you go to different passages and you disagree. Like, great. How do you resolve that? you just push the ball down the road even further.
or you can feel free
And it's
to
like, well,
respond
who
if you
knows
want,
more?
or you
Oh,
can
so
call-
you're saying that God reveals more
just
to
quickly-
people who know more? Like,
Yeah.
interesting. I thought he loved all of his subjects. Why is he picking favorites?
Oh, I think
huh?
it's going into open panel right now. Let's see who fucking dominates.
Yep.
It's through divine revelation and the normative authority of the church. But now, why is he necessary? It's necessary because the contrary is impossible. There's literally
I hate that so much. The contrary is impossible. Says who? You never prove that it's impossible. You never explain how it's impossible. I'm gonna fucking
Yeah.
lose my mind, man. I gotta pee. I'll be right back.
God. Heard.
literally, as I've showed, you can't know anything under atheism.
Thank you. And then we'll go ahead.
So the statement should be just rephrased to you can't know anything absolutely, because like you can't really just know anything absolutely. Under God view, like you can't even know anything absolutely either. Because there will exist theists who disagree on certain topics related to God, related to characteristics of God, like they still haven't even sorted that out. They just think that they have like absolute knowledge, which like that is it. It's just a claim to absolute knowledge. Most intellectually honest people will not have a claim to absolute knowledge unless there's like there's probably some positions where there's like absolute knowledge that I'm not aware of, but like most people, when they're honest, they're going to say they don't have absolute knowledge and that it's very silly to say so. But not the theists. No, we have absolute knowledge because our God told us that we are very smart, and I'm correct. Like that like that's it.
And move into the open discussion now. With this, let's try to not get too heated and have a good conversation between the two of y'all. Y'all are both seem like good people. Let's just have a good conversation. There's no reason you're not enemies, right? But let me know when y'all are both ready, and we'll start the 30 minutes for that. I'll be here to moderate that discussion. If it gets a little bit heated, I'll jump in or something. And let's try not to have one side eat up all the time. Let's try to be fair to both parties because you're both taking the time to be here today. But let me know when you guys are ready, and I'll start the timer.
Cool.
Good.
I'm ready now. I think you're ready, right?
Perfect.
I would like to start off on your morality if you're okay with that.
Sure.
All right, and I'll give you equal time back. So what do you believe about morality? Is it objective or subjective?
I believe it. I would believe in subjective.
Okay, so earlier when I said it was just your preference, why isn't it just your preference if it's subjective?
Because I can be objective about my morality, but even though it's still subjective. Because being objective means that it's you're sort of stepping outside of your situation or outside of your.
Oh, he's floundering this too. It's just mind independent. That's what objective means. It's just mind independent. That's all he needs to say. He's not concise at all.
I'm back.
Fucking hell.
Yourself and
What's happened?
Objectively analyzing it to come to.
Godless engineer is attempting and failing to describe what objective means.
Oh, god damn it.
Hold on, let's go back.
Sounds good.
Whatever.
How do I go back? Okay, we'll do this. We'll go back to 4605 here.
I would believe in subjective.
Okay, so earlier when I said it was just your preference, why isn't it just your preference if it's subjective?
Because I can be objective about my morality, but even though it's still subjective. Because being objective means that it's you're sort of stepping.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah, we're
What the fuck does that mean? How can you be objective? How can you be subjective about something object? Oh,
God.
My god. Atheists, man.
God.
Is this really
Goddamn
godless?
atheist.
This man
Goddamn
really is
atheist,
godless.
not saying anything coherent. God damn it.
These godless atheists.
I swear to God. I swear to my non-existing God. I swear. This just hurts. It just hurts.
Yep.
I'm just in immense pain.
Outside of your situation or outside of yourself, and objectively analyzing it to come to like the whatever moral conclusion you come to. So
okay, maybe I'll put it this way. It might help us. Do you believe that moral facts exist? And I can define that for you if you'd like.
Yeah, define moral facts.
So a moral fact is that a moral statement can be true or false. For example, murder is immoral. That is either true or false if moral facts exist.
Okay.
So do you believe in moral facts?
I don't believe in absolute moral facts, I guess. Like I believe that you could be
okay. He's at least
okay.
That
well,
at least
no,
will make sense. That at least makes sense. God. At least for me. When he says I don't believe there are like absolute moral facts, like there can be something that's contextually true. But God, it took so long to get to that point. It just it feels so bad.
Yeah.
Like my mind is in pain listening to that floundering. Yeah.
Believe in moral facts. If they have to be absolute, then no. And I don't think that you should either, considering your God commands the murder of people like several times throughout the Bible. I mean, I know you specially plead for your God, but you know, it's whatever.
Yeah, we can get there, and I'll totally answer all those questions. But it's confusing to me because you said that it's not preference based, yet there is no truth or false value to a moral statement. So if you say that murder is immoral, what you're meaning is you think it's immoral, not that it actually is true that murder is immoral.
Well, yes.
I think that it's true that murder is immoral if you're looking to build a civilization.
Right.
If you're looking to build a
Right, so, like-
society or exist within a
So
society,
it's social
as a society,
constructivism.
or if you're looking to, or if
I mean, yeah, and also like, God,
It's subjectivism.
yeah, because the problem is the way murder is defined legally is that it's an unjustified killing of someone, and justification being like a legal one. So it's
Mhm.
legally not justified to kill someone.
Yeah, murder is more of a legal term
It
rather than a
is-
moral term, right?
Yeah.
Technically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like the problem is, no one's gonna fucking get that unless you like know like the distinction here.
Yeah.
And then Wi-Fi gospel is just gonna use it, just moralize the fuck out of it. Like
Yep.
it's not necessarily a loss for Godless Engineer, but you have to like couch that so hard whenever you say shit like that.
Well, this is where it's good to be an egoist because you can already admit that everything you believe is just a preference at the end of the day. That's the thing I hate about secular morality is that it's basically just it's unconscious egoism pretty much in my opinion to an extent. But they won't want to
I'll have to
acknowledge
explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. We could talk about it later.
Heard.
if you're a social species and you need to cooperate with other species in your group in order to survive, then murder would not be in the best interest.
Right. So you're saying that you wouldn't say that 2 + 2 = 4. You would say that that's true. You wouldn't say you think it's true, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, we can show.
Well,
that
I mean, it's demonstratable by grabbing 4 rocks, 2 and 2, combine them together. That means 4.
Well, here's the thing: math in of itself is a human construct as well. Like we kind of created that, and it's really just the way we are able to kind of understand the
Categorize.
physical reality. Like, yeah, it's just categories. Like we don't like 0 in of itself as a number is not a real thing. It is just a
I wouldn't-
placeholder for the concept of nothingness.
Yeah,
Because
I would
there
say
is
that
no,
math
like,
is a
no
placeholder for
rocks.
various phenomena, such as grouping
Yeah.
things and
Yeah,
taking things
it's
away
just
or
how
adding
we
things.
it's just how we organize like that type of
Yeah, it's a
phenomena,
form of
yeah.
organization and measurement that we created to
Mhm.
represent these things.
and
But I
then we
would
just
say in terms
correspond
of-
that to things that happen in
I would say it
reality.
kind of depends on
Like-
how you're looking at it, I guess. If 2 + 2 = 4 is objectively true, if we're taking these numerical numbers and placing them with this amount of items and then we combine them together, then yes, it is objectively true, you know. That's kind of where I'm coming at it from, at least.
I think it's hard to divorce like a mind from the concept of math because because in order to say that, you not only have to like believe in like, you know, the use of language, but on top of that, like since math is also a human creation or a mind dependent creation, like there is no like 1 or 2 in the universe that we can really see. It's just, oh, we have this language that we are able to describe like these objects here or this grouping of objects, like you
Mhm.
said earlier.
Yeah, it's just basically a way to represent things.
Yeah, it's just that's what it is, a representation.
And it's also a tool for us to use to represent things as well. But that's kind of
Mhm.
getting besides the point for the most part.
Yeah, that would just be like in the weeds, like
That's something that we will have
philosophical
to take control of the conversation back from because that's definitely something they would try to probably pivot into.
regardless of like, how human-
maybe.
We'll have to be very careful not to get sucked into tangents like that because that's not relevant at
Yeah.
all to whether God's knowable.
True.
presence or any kind of sentient presence, 2
Right.
+ 2 = 4. I can
Okay.
get my
So-
discrete math book out if you want me to perfectly diagram how 2 + 2 = 4.
No.
I mean, it's
No.
been 20
It's
years
an
since I've been in
analogy.
school, but you know.
We could
It's just
tell.
an analogy. Now
Damn,
if you wouldn't say that
that
about
explains a lot.
if you would only
You look like it's been 20 years since you've been in school, buddy.
say that about math because independent of humans it's true, then you also would not say that about murder because it's not independently true.
I would
No,
say I
wouldn't
agree
say
with that.
about
Yeah,
murder
that-
because it requires
I mean, people don't want to say it because it's uncomfortable and kind of taboo, but like if you're thinking about it critically, yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
So-
like what is intrinsically wrong with that?
Like there's nothing
Like,
there's
all-
nothing I believe that is inherently intrinsically wrong because I don't believe wrong as a concept exists.
And also to that point, like again, murder is a legal term. Like
Yeah.
like it's not necessarily it's not a moral term per se. Like we say that it's bad because we have these laws that say so.
People mix up law and morality a lot. Let's just
Mhm.
put it that way.
Because in this case, like God also in this case can't murder because he can't murder because he's not he could be beholden to his own laws, but of course he'd have to describe them
Yeah.
coherently. God.
sentient beings in order to come to conclusions, whereas math doesn't require any kind of sentient being or any kind of mind in order to experience it, regardless of whether organisms existed in the universe. 2 + 2 would still equal 4.
All right, and this is the point I'm getting to is right here. If you wouldn't say that murder is immoral is a true statement, rather only you think it's immoral if you're focused on some goal, then how is that not a preference?
I mean, I would say that murder being immoral is a true statement, but it's still
God
subjectively.
damn it. Holy fuck.
No,
I hate secular
he's-
moralists. He's slipping up already so badly.
He's fucking he can't say that it's true.
It's like
he
I
can't
feel
say
like
that
he
it's
just can't say it
objectively
because it's like a
true.
hot topic or something like that, right? It's just like a hot take. I feel like that's what it is because most people can't own up to the fact that murder being bad is a legal thing and also a preference. Sorry to say it, right? You know, I think people are
Yeah.
just afraid to say it because it falls flat so badly logically speaking, especially from the way he's putting it. Like, I don't know, man.
It just none of it sounds like coherent whenever he says like, oh yeah, I think murder is objectively wrong, but I subjectively like no, just no. That
I think he's thinking more about the optics of saying that murder being bad is a preference rather than objectively true. Because that is kind of a hot take in some spaces, I believe, which I don't personally care if it's a hot take, honestly, personally. I'm not sure if you do either, but it's just not viable during a debate, you know? It makes no
Yeah,
logical sense. He's all over the place.
there's some cases where you have to kind of abandon the optics pill
Mm-hmm.
because you need to sound coherent instead of like completely optics based.
You need to
Holy
be
shit,
coherent.
I almost like ran into a quicksand pit. That was bad.
Nice.
Like it's
Yeah.
contextualized subjectively because like in my current time and place in the society that I'm in, yes, murder is
what is he
immoral. That's a true
saying?
statement.
What?
It's like murder's objectively wrong, but I subjectively contextualize. Like, what?
Oh god.
He's just it just hurts. It hurts.
My brain, man, my brain. We
Like
have
either
40
it's
minutes
objective
left.
and there's like some like mind independent concepts that can be tied into this,
We have 40
or
minutes left.
you're just we're observing this like in some context. Yeah.
Yep.
I can't get in the weeds.
Let's do this.
But if you were to shift time and space and society, then murder is not necessarily immoral in that particular situation.
So it seems like you have
That
to
took way too long.
contextualize it in order to say
Yep.
that murder is immoral is a true statement. Because earlier you said,
Yes.
as a moral fact, it's not a true statement.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is,
playing out,
you're-
well, hold on,
Yep,
hold on,
and he's
hold on.
gonna get
So
hammered
playing
over
off of-
this.
Is it just me,
gonna get
or are
hammered over
so
this. It's
many
so unfortunate.
atheist debaters not able to acknowledge that morality down to murder is subjective and preferential? I've seen even like Hutch. I'm not sure you know who Hutch is, right?
Yeah.
I saw him debate Andrew Wilson on morality, and he fell into the exact same trap as this. He thinks some things are like objective, even though he's a moral subjectivist. And Andrew Wilson hammered him for like 30 minutes straight on how he's nothing but preferences, which is objectively true because we all are just nothing but preferences in terms of our moral frameworks. And he's like, no, it's not a
Mhm.
preference. It's true, but I'm also a subjectivist. And it's like, you're incoherent. I don't know what it is with like liberal atheists and stuff like that, man.
Well, it's because there's not a lot of like phil talk among like politics
Not enough
streamers.
what?
It's more
Oh,
it's more of like
philosophy.
upper level. Yeah, it's more of just upper level. Like we're talking about like these concrete issues right here, and more so talking about practical
I mean, I would think like
like
fucking
aspects of policy rather than like the, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Than the abstract.
the thing is, there's even debaters like Dean and Parker who completely fucking falter on philosophy, even though from what I'm aware of, they focused heavily on like theism and stuff before they moved into current events. Like all of these debaters completely fall flat on morality for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Well,
It's
the
ridiculous.
problem with Dean and Parker specifically, the issue is that they're looking for, to some degree, sound bites,
That is true, yeah.
and it's really hard to condense like philosophy into these types of bites.
Well, I mean, they can't even
Like, it
defend
can be done
themselves. Is
sometimes,
the thing. They can't
yeah,
defend their more. They sound like Godless Engineer when they're the ones being asked questions. Is the thing.
Yeah, the problem is with both of them, they're kind of bought into the quote unquote woke shit. Like
That is true.
they're
Yeah.
like they're so like bought into that they can't really like logic their way out of certain things. Like they kind of
Yeah.
just have to believe certain things because their base wants them to.
That is true. Yeah. That's a whole other discussion that we need to get back on this.
Yeah.
Playing off of what you just said, would you say that chattel slavery is wrong? Is a true statement under your understanding of what you were trying to entrap me with?
I would say no, and you wouldn't either.
No, I would definitely say that. Well,
Oh
I
my
wouldn't say
God.
it in the same context that you're
Ah.
taking,
me
like
get
it is true. In my context
Right.
of it being temporarily,
just your preference.
constrained. No, it being temporarily constrained by time, place, societies, and all that. I would say that it is true that chattel slavery is wrong.
Oh my
But
God.
that's because
No,
I'm
that's
contextualizing.
just
Like I would
it
just
in time.
like I would
No,
just
it's
say
not-
that
it's
in
not
your
just.
preference.
I have
No,
a
under
it's
like
within my
a
preference. I'm contextualizing.
What was that?
I would just say under my framework, chattel slavery would be wrong because it's because I believe like in rule utilitarianism, like tentatively, but like I believe like freedom is the thing that we should maximize, and that you right here you're imposing on like the freedoms of other people by confining them to a certain space and forcing them to do
Yeah,
labor.
I would say I just have personal disdain for it because I physically repulse to it, kind of thing, and also like value autonomy and freedom and stuff like that. And that's
Yeah,
it.
like that
And I
is just-
can't. I won't
it's
assert
just a
it's
value judgment.
objectively wrong by any kind of objective measurements because objectivity in morality doesn't exist. It's like
yeah, I would
it's
just say
easy
like
to.
that.
He acts like condemning slavery and murder and saying it's subjective to be against them are two mutually contradictory things, and you can't say them both at the same time for some reason.
Yeah, like all you need to say is, yeah, it is a preference, and I prefer things like freedom or autonomy. Like
Yeah,
they're
it's not
like
that hard.
like, and most people would probably, if you explain it correctly, like they would be like, oh yeah, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that is a framework that makes sense. Like you don't necessarily need somebody to tell you that. You just hold that to be the case.
Yeah.
And
Realizing
because at that
in a
point now
time,
we're
place-
just back to axioms. Like
Yep.
And in a current state of
Okay, so
human
society's
progression.
preference.
Right, it's a societal norm.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's still a
I
preference.
definitely I agree with the arguments behind chattel slavery being wrong and the reasons why chattel slavery is wrong. Like I agree with those things, but that doesn't make it just simply a preference that it's wrong.
That also produces another.
Yes, it does. What?
it has to.
Oh my God.
Like,
Okay, we can't keep pausing every 5 seconds.
Yeah, we can't. We'll never finish this thing.
Yeah, we gotta let it
But
play.
before we go back, like, I wonder how funny it would be to flip the transcendental argument of like, oh, God has to exist because otherwise, like, or like because he can't not exist. What about this? Morals can't be. They have to be subjective because they can't not be.
So true. We need to make a moral objectivism segment and just ask that straight out the gate.
That would be hilarious. Just tag argument that. God,
Yeah.
You
that
still
would
haven't
be
answered the problem
horrible.
that I brought up.
What was that?
Well, I mean, your God,
power?
the omnibenevolent God, dictates that the Israelites should take slaves, and he has specific rules
Yeah.
for taking slaves. So, I mean,
Right.
it kind of seems like if God's omnibenevolent, and now we know that chattel slavery is wrong, it's wrong to violate human rights.
Who said that?
Huh?
Well, one, human rights
it's
don't
gonna
exist.
get under his skin.
Two,
I mean, we define human
chattel
rights.
right, it's just another preference.
No, it's not a
That is true.
preference.
Oh,
You're trying to contextualize things
no.
in preferences, and it's
No,
you're
you're the one
just trying to.
contextualizing.
We can't pause.
No,
we gotta
right,
keep
I
going. We gotta keep going.
contextualize morality and
Yeah, we
specific
got
times
we
and
got to keep
places and
going.
all that
It
because
hurts.
morality
Yes.
should
It
be
hurts
about
so
preference.
much. I want to
No,
pause
not
every
making
3
it
seconds
preference.
right now.
See, what you're doing is you're playing word games with the word preference in order to degrade like
What?
the actual topic of morality.
I hate this so much. Oh my god.
No,
No,
that's
because
exactly what
in
you're
the
doing.
time that, like in America in the 1700s, societal preference was that slavery was a good thing, right?
Right.
I'm gonna have to
Okay,
start
so in
arguing
that
against
time and period,
atheists at this
slavery was
point,
a good
man.
thing. In this time and period, slavery is not a good thing. How do we know
Same.
who is
We're
right
just
and who's
gonna
wrong?
need to. We're gonna need
well,
to
I
argue
would
for
think that
Pastafarianism.
Depending on the end goal that you have, you can come to that moral conclusion.
Right.
If you're
That
looking
end
to
goal is the
survive,
preference.
that well, I mean, just all right. You want to contextualize as a preference? Your preference is to suck God dick. My preference is to not do that, and
Oh.
instead to place humans above any kind
Wow,
of supernatural
goddamn, that's
deity.
so
How I
cool.
treat humans,
Oh,
how
he
I
got
treat,
destroyed.
animals
Sucking
on the
God
planet, how I treat the planet
pee-pee.
itself. All of those things are far more
When the
important
planet
to me
rains,
than,
that is God's
worshiping a
jizz
god.
on us.
So you prefer to worship a god, and I prefer not to.
This is some
thus
fedora
reducing
shit.
your position
Oh
down
my
to just a
God.
preference as well.
He needs to put on his fucking Reddit
No,
fedora,
that's
man.
not true. I
Holy
worship God
fuck.
because it's true, and that's what the debate is about.
No,
But
you
you said-
prefer you
all right,
prefer
what do we do
your
with
god.
You suck God's dick, and I
What do
don't
we do with
suck
criminals?
anybody's dick.
Tips
You're
Fedora.
gay,
I have
I'm
problems with our
not.
current criminal system.
Tips fedora.
Just
Okay.
getting that out to begin with. I have problems with it. I do feel like criminals should be punished by whatever way is commiserate to the crime that they committed. But as I said, I
Liberal.
What he means is punish me, daddy. is what he
disagree
said.
with our
Hell
current
yeah.
prison system in the United States and how prisoners
That's
are
it.
treated.
Okay, so what should we do with them?
Well, so as far as like
Rehabilitate
the
them.
topic of
That's all I'm
slavery
gonna
goes
say.
and where this is
Just
probably leading,
rehabilitate them.
Yep.
I think that sequestering somebody from a society, preventing them from doing harm to the rest of that society, is what's needed. I think that
fuck
reform
does
is also
sequestering
needed so
mean?
that they can be reintroduced to society. That
Basically
way that
sectioning
they,
them off
work with individuals in the
someplace.
society.
He could have
and
just
help
said lock them up
promote,
for life or something.
the survival and thriving of that society.
So when you sequester them from society, you put them all in one place. Do you think they're just going to get along in this one place?
I don't know. I think that humans
I mean,
in the past have always found
No,
conflict
but also
in
no
just
one
about
would
every
just
kind
do
of,
that.
Have you ever been to
in
a
any
prison?
situation?
No,
So you'll
but,
probably have to separate them, right?
Just a quick reminder: we're at 20 minutes, and this is not another cross exam. This is an open discussion. Let's be respectful
Right.
of both people's time.
I just
Thanks,
would like to
Josh.
finish
I
this,
mean-
and then
I
if you
mean,
want to
you're
go to something else,
right.
you
I
can.
mean, you're just talking about the prison system and how we sequester people
Right.
into prisons and then we separate them out. Again, however the sequestering goes, I mean, I agree in the sequestration of individuals that are harmful to a society, separating them out. Now, where this deviates from slavery and chattel slavery, for one, I don't think that the state or any private entity should benefit off of the hard labor of individuals that are being sequestered from society. I think that individuals that are sequestered from society should be reformed so that they can be reintroduced to
Okay,
society
that's
and
nice.
no longer need to be sequestered.
Cool.
And
So
let's try
wouldn't
to keep
there-
it on topic, as the topic is: does a Christian God exist?
Well, this is part of
Yeah, that
Goddess's
is
argument.
we're way off topic now, buddy.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Scott.
The moral.
Like now we're in the
Oh, all
objective
right,
versus
let's move
subjective
past
morality
this. I just want
bullshit.
to
Yep.
finish the point about the prison system. No matter if you think the prison system is good or not, you have to come up with some way of doing this, and it involves separating people from society and then separating those people from each other. And in order to have a system like that to work, somebody has to pay for it. In El Salvador, they're doing it. They're making the prisoners work to pay for their prison system, right? Some people disagree with that method. Now, if they disagree with that, then there has to be like a tax system in order to pay for the guards and the nurses and
What does
administration
this have
teams
to
that
do
run
with
these prisons
God?
or rehab facilities. So either way, there's always an economic benefit, even if it's not off of the hard labor of the prisoner. It's still
Who cares? This ain't relevant to God.
Yeah, this doesn't
an economic
make
benefit
sense
off
at
of
all.
the sequestering
Yep.
of the individuals. That was my entire point. It's very similar to a slavery. What I'm saying is you're okay with
Okay,
slavery in
so-
certain situations, and so am I.
No. So that's not slave. That I think that you need to revisit what the definition of chattel slavery is, and slavery in general, because like it's definitely the person owns another person.
Please ask
and
him what chattel slavery means.
benefits off of their labor. Like they reap the benefits off of their labor while the person receives, not nothing, but like definitely not repayment or payment in commiserate to how much labor they put in. They're essentially they're not paid adequately at all for it, and that's why I do consider a portion of our prison system now to be slave labor. I think that it's horrible how we treat prisoners in the United States. So I would agree with you that that is bad, but I'm also using my subjective morality in order to make that determination because I have a very humanistic end goal. I have a very society-centered end goal of surviving and thriving as a society, and so that's why I make the determination that that is a bad way to live, a bad way to treat people, because I have humans' best interests as my end goal that I'm using to make that determination.
Okay, we can move past
So
that. Do you have any
brave,
questions
wow.
for me?
Incredible.
I mean, I'm still like
Your
very confused
preferences.
about how. I mean, I guess not confused. I'm just kind of in awe of apologists, like William Lane Craig and yourself, that seem to be perfectly fine with the wanton slaughter of children.
God damn it, we're going into that shit again.
seems so crazy to me
Uh,
that as long as
sounds
God
unhinged when he
says to
says
do a
that.
thing, you're going to do that thing.
It's not none of
for
it's
me,
earned
though, as
either.
far as
We've
That's
heard
the worst
this.
part,
We've
like-
heard that
core
talking
aspect of
point
your
for
God,
decades.
I would
Wow,
think that
you'd slaughter
a God
kids.
would understand that.
Yes, they would.
Like there's no need.
Nobody's mind's
in
getting
killing
changed
a
from
child,
that. We've
and
heard it a
that there's
bazillion
no
times.
Like their
need
answer is yes, and so would you.
wiping out
Like-
entire civilizations when you can readily just incorporate.
Like that's the answer.
The children. You can incorporate.
Oh,
Anybody
boy.
that's not a war fighting person. You can incorporate those individuals into the society. It just seems weird to me that you think that it's still omnibenevolent for him to command the slaughter of children. So how do you explain that it's a good thing to kill a child in that situation?
Right. So it's justified in the sense that there's these two groups of people, right? And God promises a land to.
You want to know what
person.
this reminds me of, kinda? You want to know what this reminds me of? I did a video watching of this one Jordan Peterson fan who was reacting to Jordan Peterson's debate on Jubilee, and he believes that it is a sin to lie in every context. And he went as far as to say that he would tell the Nazis where the Jews were so they can go kidnap them because lying is a sin. This is what that reminds me of, kind of, you know?
Yeah, this is like it's such an untenable position because you just look completely insane. Like, of course, like if you were sitting in the same fucking house, like, oh, like Jordan Peterson's answer would be like, no, I would make sure I would do everything in my power to not allow that to happen.
No, he
Or
would.
not allow
He would. He
lying
would
to
tell
happen,
them.
like-
He would tell them. He doesn't think. He thinks
Like
lying
that,
is
like
bad.
that, but that's his response. His response is to not like he wouldn't lie. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Like he would put himself in any position to not lie, which means like eventually he would have to tell the SS where she is.
Yeah, it's God's plan
Or,
that
like,
they want to
or-
go
or
to the
not
fucking
even, yeah.
concentration camps and get gas and shit, right?
Which would inevitably kill him because that just means he's admitting to a crime. Like,
Yep.
like,
Okay.
like
let's-
he's basically saying I would kill myself and hurt and allow for the suffering of others to happen just so I can feel good about myself at the end of the day, which is a
You need to see what
horrible
I need to
position
show
to
you
lie.
what his video says later because it's so fucking bad. It is so. I do not want to ever be friends with that kind of guy. Let's just put it that way.
He tells the other group of people through that one group of person that they need to leave. They don't leave, and God judges them for that. And part of that judgment is a communal judgment. The judgment is on everybody. And then God does not do any wrong to the individuals that are killed. God has given life, and God has taken away life. So even like if hopefully me and you both live very long lives with the advancement of technology, maybe we live to 120. That'll be cool. Maybe we can have a beer on your 120th birthday. That'll be fun. That'll be full circle. But the thing is, God is killing you at 120 as well. When God takes life, he takes it every time. Every time God takes life, he takes it. So why is he justified in taking your life at 120, but not justified in taking the child's life at day 3?
I mean, it's not God. Like, so this is a false analogy here because I
Oh
mean,
boy.
unless you're talking about God
Here we go.
speaking to the dude's neighbor and the dude's neighbor going and killing him. This is totally different situation than what I'm talking about, because what I'm talking about is
I mean, it's false analogy in the sense there's a difference
yeah.
between killing somebody and letting somebody die of natural causes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure he's going to communicate that very well.
God speaking to Moses, and Moses then being like, yeah, sure, God, everybody go and kill the children in that city. Like that would be more comparable. Like, so it's not God that's killing the children, unless you're talking about an Exodus where he kills all the firstborn. It's God commanding people
even then,
to
he
go.
uses an angel.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
but that's supposedly an extension of God, right? At least that's how it was.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a theophany, and an angel of the Lord is actually the Lord. You're right. But the thing is, he's just using a different means.
Well,
we
so if-
are. What about that free will that happened earlier? Huh.
But,
It's
I mean,
true.
yeah, but I mean, still, you're saying that God is omnibenevolent, while at the same time you're just redefining what good means as to just align with whatever God wants. And see,
That is
just,
true.
that seems a
There's-
bit shady to me.
That's a
There's
good
an
point.
analogy I like to use
Mhm.
where it's if we're on the road together and you cut me off and I get really angry and I have cop lights or maybe just traffic lights in my car, yellow lights, right? And I flick them on and you're like, what is this guy doing? Flicking his lights on me. He's not a cop. And I pull up on the side of you and I'm like, pull over, pull over. Are you gonna pull over?
I mean, no, I'm going to call the cops.
Right.
Or,
But
fuck,
if
I
a
live in
cop gets
Alabama. I
behind
might
you-
pull a gun. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say you might pull over to handle it a different way, but but the point I'm trying to make is, if you cut off a cop and you were speeding and the cop puts his lights on, you're gonna pull over, right?
Sure.
All right. Why is it okay for him to pull you over but not for me?
Because he's empowered by the state to pull over, and there are repercussions for doing it.
Right. So I'm just saying that there's different levels of authority. God owns
What
the land.
authority do you have if you're a citizen, though? What?
Yeah, the only authority you have is the one that's imposed to you by or really given to you by a government.
What are you gonna
entity.
do? Do a citizen's arrest?
Like
Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah, exactly. Citizens fucking arrest. Yeah, of course.
Do you remember that meme of that British guy who was saying that he's putting an entire car under citizen's arrest, including the 12-year-old in the car?
Yeah, that was.
Oh man, this is what's
That's
reminding me
hilarious.
of, man.
And he owns everything. He's given life to everybody. He
Can
has
you
a certain
prove, can
level
you
of
prove that
authority.
he owns the land?
Well, he created it. And this
Can
is
you
again an
prove that he
internal critique.
created it?
Well, yeah. So if you're doing an internal critique on my worldview, then you have to accept that God is real in order to.
How is that
critique
an
the morality.
internal critique, though? Isn't it external critique of the Bible as a whole to say how can you prove that God created the land? I don't know how that's an internal critique. That sounds like an external critique to me. Right? Bones? You there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
That's not an internal critique, is it? Asking how
So
God created the
run that
land?
back.
Here, let me replay it real quick.
Asking how God created land. Sorry, I was in the middle of something on Dune.
No, you're good. Let me rewind it.
He owns the land. He owns everything. He's given life to everybody. He has a certain level of
Can you prove that
authority.
he owns the land?
Well, he created it. And this
Can
is
you
again an
prove that he
internal critique.
created it?
What?
Well, yeah. So if you're doing an internal critique on my worldview, then you have to accept that God is real in order to critique the morality
What?
of it.
No, I
To
don't.
say God's immoral.
What?
That makes no sense.
You don't have to fucking accept God is real to do an internal critique. The entire point of an internal critique is to prove God's not real. What?
God damn it.
And how is
Ugh.
asking how God owns the land an internal critique? That's an external critique, right? Because you're not using the Bible to internally critique it. You're critiquing it from outside the Bible. What is going on? This is ridiculous.
Oh my
No, no,
I mean,
god.
that's just an
I don't.
external critique.
You're
Alright,
trying
so
to do
it's
the
an
circular
external
logic thing that you were
critique.
trying to pin
This
me on
hurts.
earlier. Yeah, because you're saying
this
that you have
hurts
to
so
first
much.
believe
The battle of the
ridiculous evidence to prove that
retards
God
right now.
exists. So like you have to first assume God
I mean,
exists, and
that's my
then you.
argument,
Yeah, it's a circular argument. That's what tag
but
is.
it's not. No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
but-
It's inherent.
Oh, he's finally calling out
Oh,
tag as
he put-
circular, and the bro's like,
It
no, the ultimate
It
the
took
ultimate
this long to
retort.
get to it. It took an hour and 5 minutes to get to this point.
Oh man, let's see how he handles it, shall we?
Apparently
the
a circular
morality
argument.
part, especially.
How
you
is it
can't-
not a
you-
circular argument?
Like, all right. I don't know if we have enough time for this, but I'll tell you why it's not a circular. Is modus ponens, and I can explain that. If P, if P then Q, P therefore Q. Is that circular?
No.
No. All right. So if humans have
Okay.
knowledge, the Christian worldview is true. If humans have knowledge, therefore the Christian worldview is true.
See,
Is
this
that
just
circular?
sounds like some Cameron
Yes.
Bertuzzi
It just
bullshit,
it just proves that the argument is
uh,
true.
so,
It just proves that the
Cameron,
argument
The
is
argument
valid.
is
Like, you'd have to prove
self-proving.
it.
The argument is self-evident. That's called circular. Knowledge requires God to exist, therefore God exists. That's called circular logic. God exists because in order for knowledge to exist, God has to exist. That's the entire point. Oh my God.
I hate this.
Oh, he
It's
literally.
the argument. It's just the argument is just true. Like, it's just logically valid. That's all it
Okay.
is. It's just valid.
Let's listen.
It's just a God.
Let's hear
We
him
gotta
out.
finish this.
Let's hear him out. Let's calm down.
Doesn't like that argument, so it's not his. But I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
But I'm just you're the one claiming it's circular, and I was trying to show
Right.
you why it's not.
But
Well,
you didn't.
Right, but you're just saying if humans
You-
have
yeah,
knowledge, then
you
Christianity
failed.
is true, and
What the fuck?
that just doesn't like that. You don't have any.
If
support.
humans have knowledge, then Christianity is true. That's circular because it's self-evident. It presupposes that Christianity has to be true because knowledge is there.
Because
Oh
the
my-
knowledge is only obtained by Christians, like, or
I
through
don't thi-
Christian.
he
belief.
doesn't know what he doesn't know what circular means, man. Okay, let's hear him out again. We got to stop pausing.
Supporting evidence for that.
Okay, so I do have the supporting evidence for it, but I just want you to admit that it's not circular first, because I did show you that it wasn't circular.
No, you didn't.
Okay, I mean, sure, that particular argument isn't circular.
Why?
not what I was saying.
What? Let me listen.
the
I want to go
problem-
back again real quick. I want to see. I want to
He's
hear
just
it.
misusing modus ponens like that.
What's modus ponens? I don't know what that one is.
That's just it is just a valid argument in logic. P implies Q, P therefore Q. It is just a valid argument.
P implies Q, therefore PQ?
No. Premise 1 is P implies Q. Premise 2 is P. Or conclusion is Q.
Well, you still need to have a material basis for the premises to
It is
begin
it.
with, right?
It is just. What are you talking about?
Don't you still need a basis, a provable basis for the premise to begin with?
You'd need the premises to be true.
Yeah.
Like this just tells you that the argument follows. Like, you can reject these premises whenever you want, and then you can go into the arguments on whether premise 1 or premise 2 is true.
Mhm.
Like, you could just argue that P implies Q is or that it wouldn't be the case. Really, most people just deny like P. They would say that P is false, and on these types of arguments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they are both needed for each other, knowledge exists, therefore Christianity is required for knowledge? I need to hear it back. I'm so mentally exhausted
yeah.
right now.
Right, but you're just saying if humans have knowledge, then Christianity is true.
Knowledge, the Christian worldview is true.
Okay,
You-
1 second.
P
514,
so if-
1054. Let's just rewind it to 104.52. Let me listen to this.
All right. I don't know if we have enough time for this, but I'll tell you why it's not a circular. Is modus ponens, and I can explain that. If P then Q, P therefore Q. Is that circular?
If P then Q, P therefore Q. So it's just
Yeah,
it logically follows. That's basically what that means.
It's not circular. Yeah, I don't think that specific one is circular. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not.
No.
No. All right. So if humans have knowledge,
Okay.
the Christian worldview is true.
That doesn't logically follow. What? There's a
Run that
huge
back for,
gap
like,
between
5 seconds.
what?
Yeah, say that again. Hold on.
If
just
humans
go ahead
have
and finish what you're saying.
knowledge, the Christian worldview is true.
Humans have knowledge, therefore the Christian worldview is true. Yeah,
Wait,
it is valid. You would just deny premise 1 in this case.
I don't see it as
You would
valid at all. There's a huge gap between premise 1 and premise 2 Q.
So if knowledge exists, that's P. Knowledge exists is P. Therefore, the Christian worldview is true. The Christian worldview is true is Q.
Yeah.
Knowledge exists, P. It is valid at that case that it would be valid to say that the Christian worldview is true based on that argument. The problem is it only asserts that argument. It only says that argument would be true given all the premises are true.
I just
What
don't
you
see.
do in this case is you would just reject. You would reject premise 1, and you would say no. It isn't necessarily the case that it would follow.
I'm trying to wrap my head around how you go from P then Q in this context. If humans have knowledge, the Christian worldview is true. That doesn't make any sense.
You're saying you're just arguing that it's not sound.
It's not sound. Yeah, it's completely bullshit.
It is.
Also,
it's valid, but it's not sound.
Person in my
premise 1
chat
isn't true.
is asking what we're debating. Me and my friend Bones here, we're going through a debate prep and watching one of our opponents debate about God's existence. This is broken. This is absolute complete gibberish. I don't know where the fuck he gets this from, but this is so logically broken on such a basic foundational level. It's not circular, it's retarded. And extraordinarily retarded. I don't understand how people can think this. Let me rewind it one more time just so I can hear the whole thing at once.
Humans have knowledge, therefore the Christian worldview is true.
This just sounds like some
That's not circular, that's retarded. Because there's a huge gap between P and Q. There's a lot of steps between P and Q there, you know? I can't
you would just say that knowledge could exist outside of like Christianity at this case.
Well, yeah.
Like you would have.
What I want to press him on if he says this is how do you go from knowledge true, humans have knowledge, to Christianity being true? I want to know what's in between those 2 points because there's a lot there that has to be justified to make that logically coherent, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's illogical. It's ridiculous.
Cameron Bertuzzi bullshit,
and that's not even the actual transcendent God argument, right? Because there's like 2 more premises in that cause it to be circular, because the entire transcendent argument of God presupposes God's existence to justify knowledge. So that's circular. This is just like a simplified version of it that is completely logically broken.
Well, Cameron doesn't like that argument.
Well, yeah, the thing is, in a truth table where P implies Q, like it is the case that P could be true, but Q isn't, and that is a conclusion. Like that.
Yes, but like you still need to justify
that would mean
it.
that would make the premise false. Like that's the only way you make that false. You would have to then justify whether you'd have to justify that the only way you can get knowledge is through Christianity.
Yeah, what
or through the Christian worldview.
What I need to understand is how we go from P to Q in his case, you know? There's just so much in between those 2 points.
You'd have to reject P1.
Yeah. I reject the whole thing, honestly.
Well, yeah, you could reject the argument on premise 1. Like
yeah.
But I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
But I'm just you're the one claiming it's circular, and I was trying to show you why it's not.
Well, right, but you're just saying if humans have knowledge, then Christianity is true.
Yeah, but basically,
basically,
godless engineers' whole critique about it being circular is just retarded. Like, it's
like
the modus ponens is not circular. Like,
not this particular portion, no. But
no, the modus ponens is not a circular.
Yeah,
argument.
not that. But let me get the actual transcendent God argument off the top of my head. The transcendent God argument is premise 1, 2, 3, and 4. Premise 1, logic and reason exist. Premise 2, God needs to exist for logic to exist. Premise 3, shit, what was it?
So
then God
if the Christian God exists, then logic, morality, and knowledge, or if the Christian God does not exist, then logic, morality, and knowledge are unintelligible. Logic, morality, and and knowledge are intelligible. Therefore, the Christian God exists. Yeah, this is a valid argument via modus tollens, which is it's denying it's specifically just denying not the consequent, no, denying the antecedent. I think that's also what it could be called, but it is what it means is basically if hold on, Q or P implies Q, not Q, therefore not P. Is that's the form of it. 1 second.
Let me see here real quick. I'm looking it
My
up.
cat just walked in and out of the fucking room like an idiot. Yeah, it is a valid argument, but you would have to reject. You would reject P1.
Okay, so instead of calling it circular, we call it presuppositional.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
It. Yeah, it would just presupposes that P1 is true, like that.
Let's see if there is
Like you're saying your conclusion. Oh, fuck. How do I explain this? What the theist does is they affirm P1 in this case. And how they do that is they just assert that God exists, like, or that God has to exist. Like they're asserting their conclusion. That's the reason why it doesn't work. It's a valid argument. Like that case is true, but it's not a sound one.
Well, I mean,
And that's what a
valid
lot of
in the sense
that's
of
what a
it
lot of
making
theist
sense.
arguments are.
Well, I mean, we got to define what valid means here. Is it valid in the sense that it actually makes sense, or is it valid in the sense that it
is logically valid?
Logically valid, but logically incoherent once you actually scrutinize it. Because when I think
if you set it up into a truth table, all of everything lines up basically. There, I forget specifically how to show whether in a truth table specifically where it shows like everything lines up at the end. And I think it's just that there's like a true column at like somewhere in there, or there's a column where all parts are true.
I mean, I would say that it's not. True. I would say it's the transcendental argument of God for God is circular because it has to presuppose God is necessary for the premise 1 and 2 to exist.
Right, they have to do that.
Yeah, and that makes it invalid.
Their conclusion.
They have to assume their conclusion is true. That's what causes it to be circular.
That's what makes it circular. If they just utter that structure that I just laid out, it is valid. But the reason why it's circular is because you're just assuming your conclusion to be true.
Begging the question, I think it's called, right?
Yeah, it is begging the question.
Yeah,
like
and
it relies entirely on that. There's no external argument that can really like validate that.
Yeah. And that's why I call it circular, and he's just not doing a good job pushing back on that. I think Wi-Fi is actually misrepresenting the transcendental argument for God in this instance then, right? Because this is too quote unquote logically valid to be able to be the transcendent argument of God. Because even Christians criticize it as circular logic.
Well, yeah, the reason why they criticize it as circular is because you're affirming the conclusion.
Yeah.
You're just assuming the conclusion is true. You're asserting it.
Yeah.
And that's like that's what it boils down to, is you're just asserting the conclusion to be true.
Okay, I think I recognize what the issue with Wi-Fi gospel here is with the transcendental argument of God, and that is there's 4 premises for the TAG. He took out the middle 2 and is only leaving premise 1 and premise 4. Because I had it explained to me in 4 premises before, and there's 2 extra ones that are supposed to justify the gap. So he's trying to make it sound logically coherent by taking out the 2 premises that make it a argument that's begging the question pretty much.
Yeah, I've never heard of a 4-premise tag argument.
I was debating it with Jim Bob, if you know who that is. That's another debater, kind of like Wi-Fi gospel.
I don't know what the fuck Jim Bob is on about then.
Let's see. Don't rely too heavily on... I'm just reading chat right now. Don't rely too heavily on calling out the names of logical fallacies. I wasn't. I'm calling out the structural fallacies of it. Because what will happen is that they will ask you why it's a fallacy. It's better to just ask why is it this way. Yeah, that's pretty much what we were planning on doing. But right now, we're just kind of scrutinizing him and his arguments and stuff right now. Have them explain their own fallacy to crowd. Yeah, that's what we were planning on doing. We're just talking about it right now. To be able to point it out when they mess around with their arguments and stuff on the spot.
Yeah, they're just what he's doing is just mincing around his words and attempting to kind of obfuscate the purpose of that argument, really. The what it relies on specifically is that it presupposes that God is the only thing that can really explain reality.
Yeah.
The moment you sow doubt into that, it just falls apart.
Hmm.
Like you
that
have to
don't any
reject
support-
premise one.
Yeah.
That like everything is settled on premise one.
Okay, wait, there's 3 premises for the TAG. I'm looking at Wikipedia right now.
There's multiple structures for it. What
Oh
I
yeah,
gave
it
was
says
the
there's many
regressive form
versions of
it.
it, and they both progressive and regressive, but they generally proceed as follows. If there's a transcendental unity of a perception, God exists. There is transcendental unity of a perception, therefore God exists. What? Oh my god, that is a whole other fucking can of worms to go into, man. That is so goddamn.
All of it is just the tag argument can be boiled down to either progressive or a regressive argument. Progressive, it's just they do it via modus ponens. Regressive, they just do it via modus tollens.
See, this is where you would have to come in because I don't know about modus penis or whatever, you know.
Modus penis is crazy.
I don't know where you learn about this stuff.
All of my knowledge on prop logic came from, funnily enough, a summer class that I took when I was after the 6th grade. So I was like 12.
Okay.
That is like the sum of my knowledge, and then I've just touched up on it every now and then.
Okay, I found actually another
It's
one.
just prop logic.
Another form of the the TAG on Rational Wiki. Let's see. God is necessary for logic. Premise 1, God is necessary for logic and morality.
Actually.
What's up? Did you say something? Oh, I guess he's gonna be right back. But I'm just reading this right now. The Rational Wiki page for it. Let's see. So, in the most reduced form, the transcendental argument can be demonstrated with the following syllogism. Premise 1, God is necessary for logic and morality. Premise 2, people use logic and morality. Premise 3, therefore God exists. You can see the issue with that, right? I can't be the only one. I mean, obviously, I'm not the only one here seeing the issue with it. My debate partner also sees it, but I see it as presuppositional and circular, due to the fact that it has to assume the conclusion is already true. God damn it. Bones, you back yet? We're gonna have fun with this guy though, don't worry. Morally superior vegan. We're gonna have fun with it, don't worry. It's gonna be next Monday on the Raging Tomato channel. I'm gonna put a notification out on YouTube. So make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's obviously on my thingy right there on your screen, on the screen of the YouTube. Oh, put that back up.
And if you want to see a guy run around in Dune Awakening while discussing logic and argumentation, go watch Bones of Doom. Like this sultry voice right here, that's me.
Yeah, I'm
go
looking
watch
at the
me, or else you're a cucked loser.
I'm looking at the Rational Wiki page, and they reduced it to premise 1, God is necessary for logic and morality. Premise 2, people use logic and morality. Premise 3, therefore God exists. That's essentially what it is, which is in its very first premise, it is circular.
That's the progressive argument right there. But that's in that form, it is modus ponens. Yeah, that's just the progressive argument for it.
Okay, what? I thought progressive means more convoluted, not. Huh?
No. It just means that it's more of a, in this case, a positive assertion rather than like a negative one per se.
Okay.
With regressive being kind of the opposite here, and that it's doing so by denying a lot of by using, in this case, logically, we're talking about utilizing things like not P, not Q to make the argument valid.
Okay.
We're using those the negations of premises as opposed to the.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to point out
as opposed to like the premises themselves, like the. true. I don't know.
I mean, I'm
the
going to point
truth
out the
part of
fact that
it.
it's I mean, there's like a lot of different issues with this, to be entirely clear. But
The
I think the
primary
biggest
issue is
one
that it's
is
just
that, yeah,
it's a
presuppositional.
presuppositionalist arch, or it's just presupposition. That's it. It
I
relies
don't.
entirely on that.
He can bullshit. It's a good thing we watched this because now we know he could bullshit his way out of calling it circular. It's objectively presuppositional, though. There's no way you can summarize this argument in a way that is non-presuppositional, right?
It's like you would have to justify God's existence.
Yeah,
Like
and this,
you would
yeah,
necessarily have to do that, and the only way you can really do that is either through like special revelation, which in that case, like, how the fuck do we prove that? That's not
yeah,
falsifiable at that point. Or you do it through the Bible, which leaves it to be falsifiable, and then we'd have to get into the Reddit atheist arguments.
yep. So
Like
basically,
we'd have to necessarily do that.
yeah.
At that
So
point.
I'm just trying to think about how to frame it in my opening statement to be able to control the frame there the entire time. I'm thinking I'm going
Mhm.
with calling it presuppositional. Now that I found
yeah,
out there's a way he can spin it to be circular, spin it out of being circular, it's presuppositional, and that's like a massive issue in itself.
Yeah, how you could frame it is his argument relies on presupposition, and the actual like thing he's presupposing is that God exists.
Yes, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
He's presupposing, he'd have to necessarily presuppose his conclusion. And the ways that he'll talk about it, if he mentions special revelation, that is quite literally just something that is unfalsifiable. You can't really prove whether you do have special revelation or not, or whether any external actor can determine whether you have special revelation.
Yeah. So
And if you utilize the Bible, then there's like a whole like litany of
the
ways
Bible
to
is
attack that.
self-evident kind of thing. It has to assert itself as self-evident with no actual verifiable, measurable proof.
In that case, yeah, you either
We're gonna
can't verify the Bible, or
we're gonna make sure to control the
like
frame
if you're
and make sure they can't even use the Bible before they even get a chance to use it, because that's a whole other can of worms in itself.
If they use the Bible at that point, like they're screwing themselves over again. Like,
yeah,
they then have to address like the Reddit atheist arguments. They would have to. There's no other way they could go about it.
I'm glad you're here though, because you know what Monus, whatever the fuck it is, Monus pubis or something, I don't know, arguments are. I don't know what they are, man. Okay, I'm tired.
This is just prop logic. That's it.
What is prop logic?
And like propositional logic.
Oh, okay.
It's what I described earlier.
Where did you learn about that?
This was a. I don't know how this could potentially dox me if people can figure out where this comes from, but when I was 12 years old, there's this like summer class that involved taking a course on like basic logic.
Okay, I don't think
and it involved doing propositional logic.
That sounds very vague, so I don't think
there's a
program.
You. Yeah, there's a program that in that curriculum it involves that.
And you remember all of that?
I've touched up a little bit since then.
Do you have any kind of courses I can check
entirely? Courses, not necessarily. Stanford Encyclopedia could probably help you a little bit.
Okay.
But I never had like a book that I read out of. It was more so like
maybe
mostly
it'll
like
come in my
sheets
philosophy
and then
book.
whatever like the teacher had provided at the time.
Okay, maybe it'll come in my philosophy.
And I don't have
book
access to those anymore because I'm pretty sure I've lost those.
Okay.
So that would have been like over 10 years ago.
Let's finish this because holy fuck, I'm getting tired.
Yeah. Supporting evidence for that.
Okay, so I do have the supporting evidence for it, but I just want you to admit that it's not circular first, because I did show you that it wasn't circular.
10 minutes?
Okay, I mean, sure.
Do you wait? Actually, I got a question now. Do you think there's a way to phrase the TAG in a non-circular way, like he is, and then there's a circular way to phrase it, like the progressive way? Do you think, or
so the actual structure of the argument itself is valid. The problem is that when you introduce God is real as your assertion outside of that, like that is the only way you can validate P1 is if you demonstrate that God is true. what they're doing throughout that debate is just asserting that God is true, and they don't really provide any evidence for it.
So does that
That's
make it
why it ends
circular,
up
or
being
does that make it
circular.
Okay, so it turns circular when you assert God's real for all the
They
premises.
they add in a premise basically that says God is true.
Okay, so the actual
or God
concept,
exists.
the actual logical structure is valid, but it's when you add the assertion that God exists is when it becomes circular.
Yeah. When they present it,
Okay.
it will come out as a valid argument, and you can't say, "Oh, that's invalid," because or "Oh, it's circular," because that argument is not. Why it becomes circular is because they sneak in the premise of God is real.
Okay, so it's only really not circular when you're looking at it more at face value.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
it becomes
When you're
circular
looking
when
at
you
it-
actually look in depth at it.
It becomes circular when the interlocutor introduces the premise God is real into their argument.
I guess I'm not sure if
Like
it's just
it
because I'm
stops.
tired or what, but I'm just starting to I'm just kind of struggling on determining when it's valid and then when it becomes circular, because I feel like it's inherently circular because God's existence is inherent to the the DAG.
Yeah, that's it. It is inherent to that, but that's what they're asserting basically.
Yeah.
That it has to be true. So how I can basically say it is the difference is the tag argument. We'll use the progressive form here. P implies Q. P therefore Q. What they're doing is they're just saying. Well, actually, hold on. Hold up.
Mhm.
They hold. Actually, I'm going to use the regressive argument in this case because that is what I'm doing. Okay. So P implies Q, not Q, therefore not P in this case.
Mhm.
What they do is they sneak in P. Or they sneak in this case not P really.
They sneak in an external factor.
They sneak in the premise not P. Or in the progressive case they sneak in P. They sneak in or wait, hold on.
Well, I mean, how do you sneak it in if it's
no,
already
they sneak
there?
in. Sorry, they sneak in Q. They sneak in.
Oh, they sneak Q into P and then make P to Q.
Wait, okay, well, hold on. Fuck. Yeah, maybe I'm losing the thread here too. Fuck.
I feel like it's just circular because let me
just reread it. If the Christian God, this is going to be the regressive form. If the Christian God does not exist, then logic, morality, and knowledge are unintelligible. Logic, morality, and knowledge are unintelligible, therefore are intelligible, therefore God exists. What they're basically saying is that they're basically saying God exists before all that.
Yeah,
or they're adding in the premise God exists.
Yeah, it presupposes God's existence from all the way from the beginning premise, which makes it
And then
circular?
what happens is after that point, you can take away premise 1, premise 2, and what you're left with is the Christian God exists, therefore the Christian God exists. That's why it becomes circular.
Mhm.
Because the first two premises are no longer necessary. Anyway.
Okay. So when he says it in the monist whatever way, the two premise way, that is logically valid. But when you make it more regressive with the 4 premises, then it becomes circular?
When you add in the premise that God exists or God doesn't exist,
Well,
or
doesn't
wherever the fuck.
Doesn't that already exist in Q in his example of P then
Yeah.
Q? Because he said knowledge exists, therefore Christianity must be true. Isn't that just another way of saying God exists?
God exists because God exists.
Yeah. Well, he's saying knowledge
Oh.
exists, therefore Christianity must be true. But Christianity must be true is just another way of saying God exists. So knowledge exists, therefore God exists is his argument. We can rewind real quick, and you can try double check.
I don't think we need to rewind at this point. We're getting like we're getting pretty deep, but
well,
fuck. I mean, but
let me just replay it.
I'll basically go ahead and replay it.
And I'll point out why I kind of think it's like circular.
Is that circular?
Okay, let's listen.
No.
No. All right. So if humans have knowledge, the Christian worldview is true. If humans have knowledge, therefore the Christian worldview is true.
I think that's circular because it has to presuppose the Christian worldview is true in premise 1 for knowledge to even exist, right?
Yeah, he has to assert that the Christian worldview is true here. He
In order
has
for
to.
premise 1 to be existent, which makes it circular, right? In a
Yeah,
roundabout
and
way.
the thing is, because otherwise you have to, what the interlocutor has to do is reject premise 1. They have to say that knowledge can exist outside of the Christian worldview. And then at some point what you have to do is force the Christian to basically assert that God is true because God is true, or God exists because God exists.
So
And
would
that's
you-
how you get into that circular argument.
So would you say this argument that he just proposed isn't circular on its face, but then you dissect it and then it is circular?
Yeah, once you have to go deeper into that. You have to reject premise 1 and get into the argument as to why, if knowledge exists, therefore the Christian worldview is true. You have to get into that premise right there.
Yeah, we have to get into premise 2.
to hash it out.
We have to get into the premise 2. Christian worldview is
You
true.
have to get into P implies Q specifically.
Okay.
Not just Q, but P implies Q. That if knowledge exists, the Christian worldview is true. That specific premise.
Okay.
Because
Also,
what you
there's also
can
the-
do is you can assert that knowledge can exist outside of the Christian worldview, which would entail like either a different form of theism
Mhm.
or a non-theist worldview.
I would also have to we can agree there's like a bunch of different issues with this that we can't really go into right now, right?
I mean, that's just the central one.
Yeah.
Every other issue will just stem from that issue
Yeah.
that I pointed out.
Okay, let's just finish this.
See,
Is
this
that
just sounds
circular?
like some Cameron Bertuzzi bullshit. Like,
Well, Cameron doesn't like that argument, so it's not his. But I understand what you're trying to say.
yeah.
But I'm just you're the one claiming it's circular, and I was trying to show
Right.
you why it's not.
Well, right, but you're just saying if humans have knowledge, then Christianity is true, and that just doesn't like that. You don't have any supporting evidence for that.
Okay, so I do have the supporting evidence for it, but I just want you to admit that it's not circular first, because I did show you that it wasn't circular.
10 minutes.
Okay, I mean, sure, that particular argument isn't circular. That's not what I
Okay,
was saying was
so
circular, though.
The supporting argument for that is the impossibility of the contrary, because there is no other worldview that can account for knowledge, and the Christian worldview can account for knowledge. Then the Christian worldview is true.
Judaism and Islam.
Okay,
both-
See
that's
that
where it's
right
getting
there.
circular.
Pause it.
That's
Yeah,
getting circular.
that is it. That is it right there. The impossibility of the contrary.
Yeah, that. Okay, yeah,
Like
we can see where it's circular, right?
you have to reject that specifically. You have to offer a counter worldview that does provide for an account of knowledge, which could apply to basically a limited set of theistic views, like of existing theistic views that are like actually real, like Hinduism, I believe,
Mhm.
has an account for this. Maybe I think the Greco-Roman gods, like those also, like those gods would also have like some form for it.
Of accounting for knowledge.
I think.
We'll have to check.
I know
honestly.
Hinduism does because their god, I think.
What does that even
God, my
mean? What
brain.
does accounting for knowledge mean?
It is a method to know what knowledge, or not what knowledge. It is a vessel that provides knowledge or gives you access to
Oh.
knowledge.
Can't you just make up a religion on the fly and just say it gives access to knowledge, therefore it's true?
Yeah, you can.
Let me. This is something I want to ask him. Right? What if I take every single word of the Bible, copy and paste it into my own Bible, but replace it with the lore of the flying spaghetti monster? Now my Bible also accounts for knowledge. What say you? And I could just say it's divinely inspired, so you can't claim it's plagiarized. You know?
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense?
basically.
Do you think
Yeah.
that's a decent argument, or?
Well, okay, here we go. I can provide like a Hindu style concept or a tag style argument for a Hindu god. If Brahman does not exist, then the unity of intelligibility of logic, consciousness, and morality are unintelligible. Logic, consciousness, and morality are intelligible. Therefore, Brahman exists. Like
Go ahead and
Brahman is the unifying like object here. It is the unifying ground of being for all knowledge and for all like existence.
go ahead and link me.
And you
Though,
can
so
also
if
do
can
this
find
for
it.
the Jewish god too.
Go ahead and link.
I just use chat. I just use Chat GPT for this specifically.
Got it.
But
Link it to me whenever you can, just so I can kind of look into it as well, so I don't forget. And I'm gonna continue playing this just so we can get through it.
yeah, basically,
Both
like there
use
are
the
a certain
Abrahamic-
set of gods that would fall under this too.
Okay.
And you could also make up a god too.
Yeah.
Like this isn't just exclusive to existing theistic views. This could apply to anything. You could fucking throw this
Well, yeah,
in with
that's the thing. The
Scientology, too.
transcendent argument of God applies to any god you want.
And any god that you want that asserts itself as the existence for being.
Mm-hmm.
God. So like, I mean, you're just
All
wrong
right,
there.
so we could easily go through that, but are you giving up the fact that atheism or agnosticism can account for knowledge?
No, we can account for knowledge. It's easy
Okay,
to
how?
account for knowledge. Hold on, let me pull up my notes here because I did make notes on this because you made a pretty big stink about this, you know, in one of your debates. But I wrote down some notes.
Yeah.
Should have
No
had
worries.
them
Thank
pulled
you
up
for watching
already.
that. I appreciate when people do their research.
True.
And I've seen a few of your debates as well.
Let's
Okay.
fast
I didn't
forward it
realize
a
how
little
long
bit
you've been doing this
faster.
for. I thought you were newer to this, but you've been doing this for quite a while.
Yep,
There we go.
2012.
2012, and
I
he's
thought
like
you-
this.
I thought you were new to this is crazy. That's such an underhanded attack right there.
And he's been
Like,
doing it for longer than me. Holy fuck. This is
God.
sad, man.
It's pretty bad.
Like as far as knowledge goes, we can ground knowledge in let's see.
Oh boy. This is on 1.5
I'm
speed, by
trying
the
to
way.
find my notes right quick.
Yeah.
This is not a good look.
He,
Just
need me to
this
pause
looks
time for a
so
moment, guys?
bad.
I'm okay with that if you want to give him time to look up the notes.
It's up to y'all. That is one of the options that I gave y'all.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
put it to
I'll
one.
pause the time to let him look up the notes.
Oh, I'll pause time. Just let me know when you guys want me to resume it.
Thank you.
Gonna put it to 1.75 speed. Let's make it to 2 times speed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Holy
Okay. So here are my notes.
Okay,
So you
here
can
we
go
go.
ahead and start back, Taco.
Resume.
Yes, sir.
Right. So as far as grounding knowledge without the use of God naturalistically, it involves a combination of empiricism, rationalism, skepticism, and pragmatism.
So literally just the 4 branches of epistemology. Holy fuck, dude. Even I know those off
Epistemology,
the
but
top
yeah.
of my head. It's literally so the field of epistemology. That's all you had to say.
Epistemology.
Oh. It's 11:20 p.m., dude. I'm pretty mentally tired. You give me a break. Epistemology?
Epistemology.
Epistemology. Okay.
There
I'm
you
taking a piss on epistemology right now.
go. There
Right, so
you
we
go.
got,
Good.
empiricism,
good
which
shit,
is
good shit.
observation and evidence. We've got rationalism. We've got skepticism. Pragmatism, which would be the utility and predictive power. So why God is not necessary for epistemic justification. Appealing to a God to ground epistemology.
We could go through each 4 of those if you'd like. We already did go through 2 of them
Right.
earlier. I don't know if you want to rehash those or if you want to
Let's
do the
see.
skepticism or the pragmatism part.
Well, so as far as naturalistic justification goes, a naturalistic epistemology grounded in empiricism, rationalism, skepticism, pragmatism requires fewer assumptions and is epistemically more rigorous. It provides a testable, universally accessible, objective framework to achieve reliable, actionable, and continuously refined knowledge. Such a method remains open to correction and refinement. It can justify claims precisely because it remains epistemically humble, open to revision, self-correcting, and requiring continual verification rather than dogmatic assertion. This approach enhances our confidence in justified knowledge precisely because it remains transparent, reproducible, and subject to independent scrutiny.
What do you think of that, Andrew?
Cool.
Cool.
Got
All right, so here's
Cool,
something that I
Our
that's it.
brains are
heard.
cooked right now.
Yeah, I'm ready to fucking turn this off and just no life.
We have about
doing again.
16 minutes left, so
Heard.
You said it can justify it because it remains epistemically humble.
Right.
So that means you could be wrong about it, right?
Right. Yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
nobody, like, as far as
Uh-oh.
naturalism goes, nobody is claiming to be infallible in this. The only ones that are claiming infallible knowledge is, religious people.
He's
Correct.
just a
So,
fabulous. That's
epistemology
fine.
is the theory of how we know things. If you could be wrong about something, can you know it?
Yes,
Yes.
because knowledge doesn't require you to have
Okay.
infallible knowledge.
So if we were
Okay,
to
good.
have a raffle,
A way
and
that
there
I
was a
would say
billion
this is
people in the
absolute
raffle,
knowledge, but like this, I'm just mincing words. But
Mhm.
yeah, You just
Okay.
don't have absolute knowledge, which is fine.
Okay, Mr. Engineer, engineer us a good ending, please.
When you had one of those tickets,
No.
could you know that you have a losing ticket?
I mean, I think that you could know. Well, it depends on how the raffle is done. Like, are the numbers picked
Uh-oh.
before the raffle is given out, or are the numbers picked
Let's-
afterwards?
So
let's
so
say
I'm
there's
going to
literally a
pause this
billion
though
raffle tickets
specifically. He did this in a different debate. He did this on the panel debate that he had. Is God real? Like this specific question was
God
proposed.
listed?
The, yeah, no, not godless.
Wi-Fi?
Whatever the fuck. Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Mm.
Like the actual answer to this is like, yes, you can know whether, I think this is on the open panel, you can know that you will have a losing ticket. You could always be wrong, of course, but because there's a very high certainty or a very high likelihood that you will lose, you have knowledge that you'll lose. Like you're expecting to lose.
So
But
you have
could
knowledge.
always be but you don't have absolute knowledge that you could lose. You could be wrong and you could win.
So basically, you have
But in-
knowledge of the percentage chance that you can win, which is very low.
Like you have the knowledge of you likely losing.
You have the
and in
knowledge
this
of the
case, like, you
likelihood
could-
of loss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Got
that is specifically what you have knowledge in that case.
Yeah, for sure.
When you buy a raffle tickets. When you buy a raffle ticket, there's 2 tickets. They cut it in half. You get 1 ticket. 1 ticket goes in a bowl. It's a really big bowl. And there's a billion tickets in there. Everybody only has 1 ticket, and they just reach in like a regular raffle, and then they pull 1 card out, and there's a
Right.
winner. Could you know that you have a losing ticket?
I don't think that you can know that you
That
have
you-
a losing
wait,
ticket.
wait,
like,
that he
with,
could?
like near 100% knowledge,
you-
mean-
but
That you could have a losing ticket. Absolutely. That's
That's
an
like-
even easier answer.
What the fuck?
That's even easier to answer that.
Yeah.
That's such a wow.
Of course
Wi-Fi
you know
gospel
you could-
sucks at this.
You know you could
He's fucking
have
shit
one
at this.
because could doesn't mean absolute.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah.
You could
You
have a losing
can
ticket.
know
You
something.
could. Yeah.
You can
Uh,
also have a winning ticket. Like that. Yeah, this is holy fuck. He's so bad.
He
at this.
he worded
Oh,
it really
God.
badly. Wow.
He's so retarded.
Let's see Godless Engineer fuck it up, shall we?
the likelihood of your ticket being the winning ticket is incredibly low. So you would be justified in assuming that you do not have the winning ticket. But
Okay,
there's
he's
still
doing
the
fine
slight
so far.
possibility you could.
So you can't know it because
Perfectly
you could be
fine
wrong.
answer.
That's
not
no,
true.
you can't know it. Well, for one, you can't know it because the ticket hasn't been picked yet. Like the winning ticket hasn't been picked, so it's literally any
What?
ticket.
So right there, yeah, this is where Godless fumbles here. Like you can just
Mhm.
say, yeah, I can know that I'll likely lose. If I am wrong, then and I win, cool. Now I know I've won based off of the rules of the raffle.
Mhm.
But you're like, there's no absolute knowledge here. It's always like couched in something.
Yeah. That's
And that's
basically
the
how
part
it is with
where
all
he's not gonna-
knowledge, technically.
Yeah, exactly. And that's even how science operates. Like fucking Wi-Fi gospel over here is appealing to science a lot of the times, but even science doesn't assert an absolute knowledge
Isn't
claim.
the entire scientific method trying to prove itself false all the time?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But it operates under the framework that there is a likelihood that it could be wrong at any given point.
Mhm.
At any point, like some certain theory would fall apart, and it would need a new theory to replace that. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, cool. Let's do this.
Once it's picked, there's 1 ticket that is a winner.
Let's say it's picked, and the person who picked it slides it into an envelope and didn't look at it. So there is a truth of the matter, but nobody knows. Like nobody has seen the ticket yet. Could you
Right.
know?
No
that
one
you
can
have
have
a winning
absolute
ticket?
knowledge of
Well,
the ticket's winnings.
I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
no, you wouldn't
Alright,
know.
Could you know that you have a losing ticket? Sorry.
I think that there would be a high likelihood of a losing ticket.
Right, but you couldn't know it because you could, even in the slightest, 1 billionth, you could be wrong.
See, Wi-Fi gospel is just working off of
Alright,
like
so if your epistemic justification
what he's couching
could
in
be
here is
wrong, then you can't know.
absolute.
Yeah, yeah.
What he's not using is the word absolute.
And the
Like
thing is,
that,
there's,
if as long as you clarify that and you keep clarifying that, you have to fucking do that.
and
or
we can
else,
agree
like,
there's no such thing as
it looks
absolute
stupid.
knowledge, right? Pretty much. Even our
Yeah, I
senses can
can-
be
I can
lying
agree.
to us at any point. Like there's a 99.9% chance this little cloth that I'm holding is real, but there's like the 1.1% chance that it's fake, right?
Yeah.
I could be hallucinating right now for all I know.
Yeah, the problem is it's unlikely that you are because
Yeah.
of
Just
all the evidence that suggests otherwise. There is no evidence suggesting you are delusional, really, except that like you could potentially be delusional.
Mhm.
Like that's it. Like as you can see the cloth being held in your hand, I can see it. Other people can see it. That reduces the likelihood that you're hallucinating by a metric fuck ton. It's basically null. And so that way we don't consider it. And we operate like this in society anyways. Like we operate assuming that we are likely not hallucinating unless there's a condition otherwise that we have.
Yeah.
Like this is like if you attempt to kind of argue this and like, yeah, you're just kind of being bad faith.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the point where I'd say, okay, like you're being bad faith. Everyone operates like so and so. Like everyone tends to operate this way. And
Yeah.
you'd have to provide some type of argument that says otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we gotta finish this. Holy shit! It's 11.
Yeah, we do.
It's 11:30 p.m. already.
Mm.
I need to take a shower still.
No, I mean, so in
Same,
the
though.
situation of before the answer is revealed, no, you can't know it. After the answer or after the ticket is revealed, you can know it. Like I don't understand the
Right,
the
because
point
you
in
can't
this.
be wrong about it. At that point, if it's revealed and everybody knows what the winning ticket is, then you can know you have a winning ticket or know you have a losing ticket because
We could go even farther
been
and say you
revealed.
might have
We know it.
violated the rules somewhere,
Right.
or there
Mhm.
could
But
be
I
a
mean,
rule
like, let's
violated
you know,
that,
you could
that would
also say,
preclude you
oh,
from
look, that
winning
person
too. But
saw the ticket before it
whatever.
got put into the envelope. Then they would know. You know, it's just all a
Right,
matter of,
because-
of when you have the information in order to make the determination about
Yeah.
whether or not you have a ticket. I really don't know where this is going. Can you just sort of, get past
That
all
is a
of
good
this?
point. Yeah,
Because
let's do this.
my claim
Yeah.
was that agnosticism and atheism, any worldview adjacent or any worldview under those categories, can't account for knowledge. You said it could. One of the things I heard you say was that it was epistemically justified because it's epistemically humble, and that's what I pressed on.
Okay. How does factoring God into your lottery situation make it to where you can know shit?
That's a good
So
question.
in the lottery situation,
God
is
can
the
reveal
organizer
it
of
to
the
me.
raffle.
That's it.
And
God
he
is the
did see it,
organizer of
and
the
then he
raffle.
reveals that information to me. So, for example, he looks at the lottery ticket, and then he texts it to me and says, "Hey, you lost. Sorry." Nobody else knows,
Huh?
but I have knowledge because God, who knows the information, revealed it to me. That's the analogy in my situation where God
How do
knows
you,
everything.
Yeah,
Can't be
but
wrong
how do
about
you know?
anything. Go ahead.
Well,
Oh,
right, but
boy.
how do you know that God didn't pull your ticket and then just texted you no anyways?
Like
That's
he
a good
lied to me.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that God couldn't reveal things to me, which is why I know it's the Christian God who can't lie.
Oh, but
What?
God definitely says that he lies in the Bible.
Where does he say that?
Let's see. There was I can't remember the exact verse, but there was
Oh, god damn it.
So I kind of know where he's going. Actually, it's probably going to be if you sacrifice your son, or if you take your son up the mountain and I think it's fucking Abraham. I think
Mhm.
the story of Abraham. You take your son up to the top and you sacrifice him for me to prove your loyalty to me. The problem is God never intended to have his son killed. He instead at the top
Oh.
has like a sheep up there, and he basically lied, saying that he actually didn't have to sacrifice the son.
Interesting.
And like that is a lie. That is a lie that God tells.
Yep,
The
that
problem
is
is I don't
true.
think I
He-
kind of
he
hope
doesn't know
that
that.
Godless Engineer, hopefully Godless Engineer knows that specific one. But Wi-Fi Gospel can't really get out of this without having to pull some voodoo magic.
It is a good thing I have you here for this debate. I swear to God.
a time when there was like a whole bunch of prophets and God sent out a lying spirit into the prophets' mouths and told a bunch of lies and only revealed the truth to one particular prophet. But it's the fact that God sent out a lying spirit to the prophets. So God literally lied to all these prophets and
That could
only
be
gave
another
the
one.
truth to one
I'm not
prophet.
familiar with that one.
And so yeah, God lies.
1 minute.
No, I would have to.
I
see
think
the
that
exact,
one that
story,
example is a
'cause I
little bit
don't
poor
think that you
because
have
very
the,
less
context
people
of
are
that.
aware
Right.
of that story, and they're more
Mhm.
aware of the Abraham story. I just think that one's more
So you
effective,
don't.
but
So
the lying
let me get this
spirit could
straight.
be
You don't
pretty
know
good
which
too.
story I'm talking about, but you know that I got the
No, I
context
know
wrong.
the story.
Do you?
I know the story, but it doesn't seem like I know it's in First Samuel, I believe, but I don't think I
Okay,
don't
he knows
remember
it too.
it exactly happening like how you said it did.
Ah, yep, that's
Let me
so
see.
yeah.
if I can
The thing
find
is,
it.
Wi-Fi Gospel
Is it
doesn't know the
Samuel
fucking
1,
Bible. That's
15, 29?
crazy.
Is that the one?
The Godless
Nope,
Engineer still
Samuel 1.
fumbles here, specifically because he also can't pull it up immediately. But the moment he does, like
Yeah.
the moment he does,
15:29.
you're still kind of cooked.
Yep.
And he who is the glory of Israel does not lie or change his mind, for he is not a human being, that he should change his mind. Does God ever change his mind about things?
When God changes his mind in the scripture, it's a relation. It's not like he actually changed his mind. For example, when it says he wishes he never made man,
It's a cop out
it's
answer.
like it's saying like I wish I never did this thing. It's not saying like
That
he
is
actually
time,
wished
but you can
he
finish.
intended to do it. He intended to do this thing. It's just a way of relating his what he's thinking to us.
All right. That was time.
Yes, sir. So that was the open discussion portion. We'll be moving
That
into
is
the
just such a
closings.
cop-out
The
answer.
affirmative is going to take the closing first.
Okay,
and
we
then
don't need to watch the closing statement. I'm not gonna lie. We can cut that off.
Yeah, I think I would have lost more IQ points listening to that.
Okay, so what have we learned today? Besides the fact that our opponents can be really fucking stupid. I can only imagine how much he's gonna crumble under the pressure we're gonna give him, though. I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna be a fucking fantastic
Yeah,
shit show.
there's a variety of angles that we could take
Yeah, we need to coordinate.
that would cook him. I
Oh,
think
boy.
mostly external critiques would work.
Yep, for sure.
The moment he starts going into like, oh, like Bible claims, like I can kind of take over from there,
Mhm.
and then you can just watch him squirm from there.
I will
'cause at that
focus
point,
on the epistemology points, and then if he goes into prop logic and stuff, that'll be more your forte, I believe.
yeah,
Okay.
I think that works.
We need to watch a couple other debates too that I have of him, so just to get the full grounding of what he's like.
Yep, though we got plenty of time for that too.
Hell yeah, dude. We got tomorrow as well. You good to stream tomorrow?
I am good to stream tomorrow.
Cool. I need to pee real bad, and I also need a shower, so I'm gonna end the stream here from me. I don't know what you're gonna do, but if anybody's watching my stream,
I'm still playing, so
go head over to Bones.
Bones of Doom live on Twitch, playing Dune Awakening. You're
Bones-
about to watch me go into the 5th trial.
Bones Doom
I
or
just found
Bones
here.
of Doom?
Bones of Doom.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'll see you later, and I'll also see stream.